Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, CEO Nigel Morris, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Millie Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting of the 17th of June 2024. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leave of absence. I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer Nigel Morris, our General Manager Community Stacey Betterson, our General Manager Infrastructure Alan Harvey, General Manager Corporate Tash Hunt, and some of our other staff who are here as required. We'll welcome members of the gallery. Would you all please stand for acknowledgement of country and the local government prayer. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, Paramount and Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to grant Thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just remind council members, if you have an interest in a matter which is before the council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting, and members are reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. First item is the minutes of our meeting held on the 20th of May 2024. That they be received as true and correct. Moved Councillor Maidment. Seconded Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to those minutes? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Next one is the minutes of our special council meeting held on the 11th of June 2024, that they be received as true and correct. Moved Councillor Thornton. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. There is no adjourned debate. Item 3 is presentations and deputations. 3.1 is a deputation relating to the Strathalbyn sound shell proposal. We have Graham Jenke, who's the chairman of Christmas Where the Angus Flows, who's here to make a deputation. So welcome, Graham.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. I've got a side, what do you call it? Anyway, yeah. And I'll just start with the first one, and I've got comments to go with it. If you want to ask me some comments at the end, I think I'll do it in 5 minutes, but perhaps can I have time if I go over?
Are you happy with that? Yep. Okay, thanks.
Right. Just got to get this right first. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, It's to do. My name's Graham Jenke, as said, and I'm chair of the Christmas Where the Angus Flows. And I've been organising the concept for that since 2014, since the Interchurch Council took it over. And I actually support the concept of the Sound Shell and the Soldiers Memorial Gardens. Number 2, yeah. But if you do, yeah. The second one, please. Yeah. That's the current site that we use, and I feel that such a venue could be utilised all year round for impromptu entertainment. Local and visiting artists, the schools are interested in using it, and if we had our sound show, we could have an open air movie nights, and even just a place to sit, have your lunch and contemplate. Next one. In 2015, I first raised the idea of a sound shell with local councillors. They were Craig Mayman and Rex Keeley at the time, and I spoke to the Mayor, Keith Parkes, about it, and the engineering works at the council, engineering works. Nearly 3 years ago, I was asked by the councillors to meet with the council architect at the site and to explain my concept of the sound shell on the site where it's currently the amphitheatre is constructed. So that's the current site. Now I'll just go on the next one. I proposed an architect. We'll just go back one, thank you. Yeah. I proposed to the architect a scaled down version of the sound shell at Narracourt. I don't know whether you've seen that one before, in the southeast. And we agreed at the time that the design like this could be recessed into the current site and made of stone or concrete with a concrete stage that would blend in with and then it all blend in with the park setting. Next one, thank you. Yeah. Fast forward to 2024 and the design presented by Council for public consultation of sound shell for Strathalbyn. While it's a beautiful piece of architecture, I believe, and many people have spoken to me, that the opinion to me that it is totally unsuited for the site and does not fit in with the town's heritage aesthetics or the nature of the memorial park. Next one, thank you. Looking at the design drawings, and this photo comes in with it, I believe that the slope of the site has not been taken into account. And if you see there, you can see the bridge and down to where it is. The picture on the bottom side, I'm actually standing on the stage area, and there's the bridge up there. And being approximately 3 metres drop from the northern exit of the bridge to the current stage site. Next one, thanks. Yep. With the current current specifications for wheelchair access, which we need, from the bridge to the stage site, it would mean the front of the stage would be 2 to 2.5 metres above the existing ground level where the stage is at the moment, making the size of the proposed stage site unsafe. Now on the picture there you'll see it looks like it's level with the ground, but it hasn't taken into account the fall of the ground. I picked that up. Right, next one. With the current the design shows the ceiling, if you have a look at the ceiling, in the proposed stage site sloping upwards, but towards the front, which is necessary for natural acoustics. However, the panel at the front of the stage, which can be seen in the picture there, that would completely block the sound from being projected outwards naturally. And you can also see there, they're sitting on the side of the stage that's level with the ground. Well, the ground looks flat, it's not like that. And could you go to the next one, thanks? Yep. And finally, you'll see on that picture there, as if we put that sound shell where it is, I believe it will suffer from flooding. Now, this came out of the recent Argus, as you'll see on May the 30th, 2024. We had a flood in 81, and it was the height of almost the height of the bridge, and also in 1992. So I believe that sound shell, as it is, would get washed away or be severely damaged. But the proposal that we originally had built out of stone or concrete I believe that could possibly stand a flood of that type. And in a summary, just at the end, as I've said before, it's an excellent site for a sound shell. The proposed one at this stage, the community don't like it at all. The town's aesthetic is not present in the design, I believe. The current design could not afford disabled access without it creating that significant hazard, as I said. There is currently a couple of gravel paths down through the roses, and with some modification, I believe that you would have wheelchair access. You may have to put another one down, like in a zigzag pattern, to the park, because you can't get down to the river on that side at all in a wheelchair or a gopher at the moment. And as I said, the acoustics I don't think are right, and I don't think it would be able to handle a flood if we have one, which I think we're going to have one soon. Any questions?
Thanks, Trevor. Any questions regarding that? No? Thank you very much. Good presentation. You must have told us everything we need to know, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Item 4 is petitions, and there are none. Item 5 is questions with notice. There are about 5. 5.1, a question from Councillor Miller regarding funding of Lifeguard services. Councillor Miller regarding the Friends of the PS Oscar W lease execution. Councillor Miller regarding the Recreation, Open Space and Sport Strategy and Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road, Strathalbyn business case. Councillor Nicholson regarding land sale at 104 Port Elliot Road, Middleton. Councillor Miller regarding the current annual business plan and budget of 2023-24, and those questions and the answers are all in the agenda. Item 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Maidman.
Yeah, currently at Strathalbyn there's a wing wall on the riverbank being reinstated alongside the old swimming pool. There has been a path cut through the bank to allow a small excavator to get down to the site. What I'm wondering is, this happened on Friday, so it's continuing this week. What I'm wondering is that path going to be a permanent path? Because the only other access to that area is down some stone steps which have been there for a very, very long time. So quite a few people have said that ideally they'd like to have that path maintained and left as is. So I don't know what's the status at the moment.
You'll take that on notice apparently. Any further questions? Councillor Coomans.
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor Parks. This is a little bit long-winded, but I just need to say these few words before I ask the questions, if I could. It's in relation to the whether there will be or will not be a rate review. And I guess I introduce it by saying that given the CEO supported a rate review, but will be leaving the organisation in July, the Audit and Risk Committee recommended that Council reviews its current rating system, that my original just failed motion in December for a comprehensive review of the rating system, Councillor Nicholson's just failed motion last meeting for a rating review, because probably two members said that in fact Council had adopted the Audit and Risk Committee's recommendation on a full rate review, that the angry feedback from the community consultation on the proposed 8.3% rate increase appears to support a rate review. My questions are there sufficient directions from Council in the system that such a full rate review in fact will be occurring within the next 12 months? And if so, in what form would such a review take? I've got a couple more too.
Through the Chair, the current resolution of Council is not to do a rate review until the next election, so that resolution currently stands.
So indeed, the recommendation from the Risk and Audit Committee, Audit and Risk Committee, which Council adopted, does not include a rate review.
Through the chair, they recommended to council that there was a resolution of council already that a rate review not occur prior to before the next elections.
Yep. Okay. Question 2. Given the business plan and budget will be considered at the next Monday's meeting, will members be provided with a full operating budget 24-25 in time for it to be fully considered, and if so, will it be in a form for easy reading?
Through the chair, the full operating budget has been provided to elected members in the past. It was in a PDF format probably about 6 weeks ago. We can provide an updated one tomorrow if that's required, but it's not that much different than what we distributed to elected members before.
We do have an operating budget, but it does compress the individual line items of the budget. It doesn't include all of the information that maybe we should have.
Through the chair, I can distribute something tomorrow.
Any further questions? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I did indicate this earlier, but I have 22 questions that I would like to ask, and they relate to the management of the Goolwa Oval. And I would like to move that my questions and the answers be included in the minutes, or taken on notice if they can't be included in tonight's minutes. Would you like me to ask them one at a time, or shall I ask them all at once? Why is Council facilitating a transaction between the Mount Compass Netball Club and for unboxed LED netball court lights from the Goolwa Over Netball Club?
Through the chair, that is up to the mover of the motion to explain that when they move that. That's not something administration can answer. Perhaps these questions could actually occur when the motion's moved, after the mover has spoken and given some of those things, or I'm happy to continue answering these one by one.
I'm moving that my questions be included in, and if I wait until the debate, they won't be included, as I understand it. Where in the 2023-24 operating budget is the $9,000 coming from? Is it from the Goolwa Oval operating budget, or somewhere else?
Through the chair, without a specific mention of where the budget's coming from, it will just be taken from the general expenses from the operating budget.
I understood there wasn't a surplus, but has a management agreement been executed between Council and the, and I quote from page 20 of the agenda, the newly formed Goolwa Recreation Grounds Management Committee, and if not, what is still being negotiated?
Through the chair, it hasn't been signed off as yet. One of the sticking points at the moment is their ability to raise revenue, and they're waiting to see the outcomes of the discussion tonight regarding the issue.
Does this mean that the Office of Consumer and Business Services has ratified the reinstatement of the Goolwa Recreation Grounds Management Committee? And if so, has an invoice been generated and sent to the committee for payment of the user fees prior to 30th of June this year?
Through the chair, I can confirm that it has been ratified, and our finance department has been told to raise that invoice now.
Has ownership of the $35,000 mower, I think it was $35,000, that Council purchased and gifted because there wasn't a Recreation Grounds Committee at the time, gifted to the Port Elliot Football Club, Goolwa Port Elliot Football Club, now been transferred to the Goolwa Recreation Grounds Management Committee?
Through the chair, the mower is currently still under loan to the football club.
So just going back to the lights, if they were valued at $80,000 when obtained by the Goolwa Netball Club and are unboxed, isn't there an opportunity here for the Goolwa Oval Netball Club to sell them and raise funds, or raffle them off, or even donate them to Mount Compass? I don't understand why Council's involved.
Through the chair, I should just clarify, they are still in the box. It should be unboxed, is not the correct word that should have been put in the motion. And the choice of what they do with the lights is up to the netball club themselves.
What procurement policy and or asset disposal policy is guiding this purchase of the lights and then gifting to another entity?
Through the chair, we always need to follow procurement processes, but I think the move of the motion is going to clarify that what the intention is to donate money to the Goolwa Netball Club and then donate the lights to the Mount Compass Netball Club. So in fact, council isn't going to purchase them because they're not going to be installed on our property, but it's facilitating a transaction between the two. But the move of the motion can clarify that when they move it.
Have any of the users of the Goolwa Oval contributed anything to the facility since 2019? And if we don't have a user agreement, why are we involved in this transaction at all?
Through the chair, the council has agreed that we'll be invoicing the new management group, and as I clarified in one of my previous answers, we'll be raising that invoice for them shortly, and we'll expect payment through that. Council has agreed that that is the proportion of funds that we require from the combined clubs. So they haven't contributed up until this stage from a period of time before, but that's the invoice we'll be raising, and we expect payment for that.
How confident are we that there are no other community or commercial entities interested in the boxed lights?
Through the chair, the mover of the motion has requested that the lights still in the box be put out to Mount Compass. Administration hasn't done an investigation on all ovals at this stage.
How much does the Goolwa Netball Club owe council for their portion of user fees for using the council-owned facilities?
Through the chair, council's agreed that we'll be invoicing the management group, and so the management group are the ones that are going to be distributing and working out the proportion of each of the clubs. So I can't tell you exactly how much they owe at this stage, because it's not actually the netball club that will be paying us in the future, it's the management group.
Then how much will the management group contribute into the future towards user fees to access the facilities there?
Through the chair, we'll be bringing those leases to council at a future date so that they can be reviewed. That will determine the amount. The amount that was determined that would be invoiced in 23-24, I think was 21. Am I going up to $23,000? 23,000.
Why, when other sport and recreation groups have approached council and made deputations, and there have been several this financial year, are they told to wait for a surplus, wait for a budget review, or apply to council for a community loan, yet this one is somehow different? I'm just trying to understand the difference.
Through the chair, whenever someone does a deputation, any elected member has the ability to move a motion to seek consideration of council. In this instance, the mover of the motion has considered allocating a proportion to the Mount Compass Netball Club.
Are we confident that the Goolwa Wharf project won't need any further contingency funding?
Through the chair, the contingency funding still has about 500,000 in it. Most of the works, the uncovering of works, when you pull back the layers of dirt, see what actual damage is there, has been done. We're nearing the completion in October this year, and we're confident that there is going to be no more major expenses, yes.
Are we confident that no other project, major or otherwise, in our capital works program won't need any contingency funding?
Through the chair, we did check on that today. We've got only about 3 weeks left to go on spending. We're confident that it will go nowhere near that 500,000 that we have in that contingency funds.
Is there any urgency to upgrading this kitchen?
Through the chair, we've been talking to the clubs over the past 2-3 years on this. We've also been talking to the funding body. I think it's an important aspect for the clubs to be able to generate the revenue to achieve better results. I think it's also important when you're hiring out those facilities that they have the kitchen facilities they need. This is the feedback we've been getting for the last few years, yes.
Is there any reason this can't wait for a final budget review when we know our financial results and can confirm that the contingent funds are available?
Through the chair, there's a little bit of a domino effect in that we're wanting to sign the leases up. The clubs are also wanting assurances that they can generate revenue. The quicker it can be done, the better they can move on and start earning those revenue. That's the urgency that they've provided to administration, but the mover of the motion can talk to that a little bit more.
When a tenant leases a council premises, aren't they usually responsible for some or all of fit-out costs?
Through the chair, when it comes to leasing arrangements, that's done on a case-by-case basis, and that's presented to council for consideration.
Will any contribution to the upgrade be made by any of the users who will benefit?
Through the chair, the motion at the moment doesn't specify such a thing, so there isn't it doesn't instruct us to do that, so the answer is no at this stage.
Will the user fees payable reflect the significant uplift in facilities if council should commit to this extra $90,000?
Through the chair, the leases will come back to council and an agreement will be made of what they pay, and that can be decided at that time.
Last month, in response to a question I asked, and I asked 11 questions about this matter last meeting, I was advised that the year-to-date spend in the operating expenses for the Goolwa Oval Recreation Precinct to date is $100,118 of an annual budget of $145,000. If this motion is supported, is it correct that it will take council's investment, be it borrowings or operating, for the current financial year to the Goolwa Oval in excess of $200,000?
Through the chair, the amount expended out of that $145,000 is $130,000. If council resolves to do this, it will be on top of the $130,000 that we've already spent. Yes, 130 plus 90 is 220.
Are any procurement policy or asset disposal policies guiding this kitchen renewal?
Through the chair, we have been going through a process to get quotes for the kitchen, and so those procurement policies will be followed, yes.
I just wish to move that my questions and the answers be included in the minutes, and I seek a seconder for that to occur, please.
And do we have a seconder that they be included? Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? All in favour? 4. It's 5. It's 5. It's carried. We'll do it again because I really get tired of playing games. Who's putting their arm? Who's got a hand up or not? If we can see them, please. All those in favour? That's 5. So it is carried. Are there any further questions without notice? So we move on to item 7, which is notices of motions. 7.1 is a notice of motion by myself, which is very unusual, probably the second one I've ever done, regarding the community funding allocation. And it's 2 parts, and I'm happy to do it in 2 parts. And so we'll do part 1 first, which relates to the $9,000 from the 2023-24 operating budget for the purchase of the boxed LED netball court lights at the Goolwa Netball Club, and for them to be donated to the Netball Club. You may recall that we had a deputation from the Netball Club some time ago, and they've since written to us explaining what the conditions about the state of their courts, but also other things that really need to be upgraded up there to make the place safer. The history behind these lights is that the Goolwa Netball Club applied for a grant and was successful, and they got the lights supplied, and the lights were worth over $80,000. They're probably substantially dearer now. They've never been installed because the light poles that the lights would have gone on were pieces of old, like railway line or something like iron, that they weren't structural light poles, and we had no information at all about the state of the foundations and the engineering behind the foundations. So it was deemed that they couldn't go on those poles, so we had to have new poles, which they didn't have. In the meantime, the project on the oval commenced and started going ahead, and the netball courts and tennis courts were all done, and the lighting, extensive lighting put in there, which enabled the courts to be used for tennis as well as netball at night. So the lights were not used. So we had a netball club at Mount Compass that were in desperate need of some decent lights, and instead of lights in boxes in Goolwa that they were not going to be used. Now the netball club could have sold those lights to anybody for whatever they can get for it. They're their lights, so they could have gone and got $80,000 for them. However, I had a discussion with them because I explained to them that they had had over 18 months use of the facility that hadn't cost them anything, including power and all sorts of other stuff. So they hadn't been paying for some time for the use of the facility, so they'd done pretty well there anyway. And would they consider giving the lights to another club that were desperate for them? And they said, well, they were hoping to sell them and get an income from it towards facilities for their members. And so they sent us an email advising that if possible, they would like to get $9,000 for them. So that's where the $9,000 comes from. And that's the reason why we put this motion. The council would probably assist them by putting the lights on one of our trucks and dropping to Mount Compass, but they would be responsible for the electrical installation and modifications to their existing light towers, which are appropriate light towers. They're professionally made, proper light towers. So that I move that. Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Coomans? And do you wish to speak to that?
Oh, I do, Mayor Parks, and I'd like to thank you personally for the amount of effort that you've put into this and the negotiations with the Goolwa Netball Club in securing those. We might need to change the motion to box rather than unboxed. Yep. The current halogen lighting provided on the Mount Compass courts provides very poor illumination and really not fit for purpose. These are LED lights that you're sourced. They are high efficient and low operating costs. So I can see that there's a great benefit. And you've already said the installation costs and any necessary modifications will be at the expense of the club, and I'm sure they'd accept that. A bit of transport, they're in our depot at the moment, so to transport them out there I don't think is a big issue. And what it really means is that the club will be guaranteed to continue to be able to participate in the competitions involving players, not just from Mount Compass, from all over Alexandrina, and hence this is a benefit for all of Alexandrina. So I'm only too happy to have seconded your motion.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Thornton.
I just have a question. In terms of the grants that Mount Compass will be applying for later on for their resurfacing and stuff, does that granting include the supply and money for lights as well?
No, separate item, separate matter.
Yeah, but it applies to this, because if they are potentially going to be able to get lights from the grant funding that they're applying for, then Goolwa could sell these lights and make some money to help themselves and maybe the kitchen.
Because if they're successful in getting the $50,000 they've asked us for, that gives them 25% of the $200,000 it's going to cost to do the courts, and that's a requirement of the grant, so there's no money left over. That's why they've got lots of other things they want to do that they can't do at this stage. Further discussion. Councillor Miller.
I have a question, Your Worship. This is not about, for me, the netball club or the lights really, but if they purchased them with a grant, wouldn't there be an acquittal process or something that says they had to use those lights? And if it costs them nothing, why don't they just gift them? I mean, and I know these are questions for the netball club. I just feel really uncomfortable with this procedurally. It feels like they are leveraging us emotionally with this, and it's about between clubs and clubs. So I do have an issue with this, but it's not about the Mount Compass Netball Club's worthiness or the merits of giving them the lights or anything. It's just the underlying premise here. So they've purchased these lights with a grant, so it's cost them nothing, and now they're in fact profiting from a grant that hasn't been acquitted. I'm sure they would have, I don't know, that they're questions for them. It's just, I think we're facilitating something that you know, we've found $9,000 from somewhere. I wasn't aware we had. Is this coming from the operating budget of the Goolwa Oval, I guess is what I'm asking.
Through the chair, we haven't found $9,000. This will increase our deficit by $9,000 in the current financial year, and it just comes from general expenses, not specifically from the Goolwa Sporting Precinct.
So is there any further discussion? If not, I don't think I need to have my right of reply, so I'll just put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That is lost.
Division on that, please, Mayor.
Councillor Coomans is calling a division. I just remind the members that a division is a new vote. Ask those voting in the affirmative to please stand. It's Councillor Oliver, Councillor Scott, Councillor Coomans and Councillor Maidman. Those voting in the negative, would you please stand. It's Councillor Thornton, Councillor Miller, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner. It is lost. Thank you. So we go on to the second part of it. The motion, which is that amount of $90,000 be allocated from the 2023-24 capital program for the upgrade of the kitchen facility at the Goolwa Oval, additional to provide functionality for additional users want to use it, and to assist with the running of the facility. And there's also $10,000 of that money is to convert a fixed window to a bifold so that it can be open to be used as a servery. I think a few things, there are three important things to be considered about this and that old oval facility, and why I'm keen and to support the clubs in their request to get this thing sorted out once and for all. So we'll start with the beginning. They owned two buildings on the site. They owned them. They paid for them over years, and we knocked them down and we gave them nothing for them. And they were able to generate revenue and have functions and do things within those buildings. And they were removed to make room for this new development, which they didn't ask us to build the grand development. They just wanted some upgrades done. Part of the grant funding from the federal government, which is $5 million, included the facility being fit for purpose and having a commercial kitchen so that the clubs could raise money and therefore be able to afford to look after it. So you look at without the kitchen, the viability of the club, the ability to run, to have weddings, functions and events there, other than basic hot chips, hot dogs and pies and pasties, really limits them what they can do. And so it does need to be done. We've been continuously spoken to by the federal funding partner just to find out why this kitchen was never put in the way it should have been in the first place. Now, that's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not a fault of this council's administration or Nigel's. This goes back to the previous administration of council and not the previous elected body either. So there were things that happened with this facility upgrade where limited consultation was involved with the parties that are going to use it. And this has been the problem why the ownership of the facility should never have been taken away from the community. It should have always been a community facility. We should have just assisted them with the grant funding to do the upgrades. Instead, they were convinced to get out of it, let council run it. So I put it to you, do we spend a bit of money and fix it up so that they can run it and look after it and be profitable and care for it? Or do we just say no, let them walk away from a lease agreement because they can't afford to look after it, and council continue to spend $150,000, $200,000 a year looking after it. They're the sort of options we're up against. With the figures are in front of us, we can see what's been happening, and the clubs are actually struggling. Like many clubs, they all struggle to get by. But we've really gone out of our way and helped other sporting groups over the years when they've been doing upgrades and facility improvements, and gone the extra bit. And this one's really no different. It's really, to be quite frank, it's a very unfortunate circumstances that they find themselves in, and we find ourselves in. So I ask you to support this, and let's get this oval finished and out of the way once and for all. So looking for a seconder for that. Councillor Oliver. And do you wish to speak to it? Yeah.
Yes, please. Look, I've been looking at the issue of the oval and listening to the clubs for a long time now, and I have to say I've considered this issue very carefully. I don't want to spend any more money, more than anyone else does. However, I do believe that this is critically important, that it should have been included up front and through the plan, and it needs to be finished properly. The opportunity to fundraise and to fully function as a club is critically important to these clubs and all the people involved, and they need to be fully empowered and capable to raise funds and conduct themselves, properly. So I think it's a grassroots opportunity which will raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future, and I think we have to support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Maidment?
If we don't support this, we run the risk of the club walking away, and you'll have a similar situation that has occurred at the Mount Parker Oval, where it becomes too costly to conduct your business. And the fact that I remember 5 years ago or 4 years ago now, walking into that canteen prior to a handover, and it was not ever going to be a commercial kitchen when you have some boffin in Adelaide sitting in an ivory tower designing a kitchen without having local knowledge around how a football club possibly uses a kitchen, and it wasn't fit for purpose at the time, and really it should have been addressed well and truly by now. But I understand the challenges with the leases. Let's get the leases done. This will get the leases done, and then they'll be on their way, and we'll be saving that $140,000 a year, and let them go to their own devices. It should have been done in the first place. Council should not be engaged in running sporting facilities, as I've said it plenty of times before.
Councillor Gardner.
I'd dearly love to vote against this. $90,000 would go a long way to help a lot of other sporting clubs, and I voted against Mount Compass Netball, and I felt really distressed about that. And I also voted against the $9,000 that we've just, the motion failed tonight. I have seen a number of times the kitchen at the Oval Function Centre. I have no idea how that got to be built. It must have been a duffer who actually designed it. It's so inappropriate, and so I am well aware of the dilemma that the football club and the other clubs have just going into it. So as much as I would like to say no, I will vote for this, because we need to get this finished. It needs to be, the leases need to be signed, the clubs need to take this whole area over, and we need to be able to dust our hands. It's been going on far too long, it's been far too painful, and the sooner we do it, the better.
Any further discussion? Councillor Thornton.
I too think it's really important for clubs to be able to fundraise. I wondered if the club had already considered selling their lights, whether amending the motion to say that we would cover the leftover amount of money from their sale. So if they sell the lights for 70, we cover the rest to get to 90.
It's got nothing to do with the lights. The lights have got nothing to do with the kitchen.
But they have the lights still now.
No, they don't. The Netball club has the lights.
Aren't they all one group?
No, the clubs are individual. There's a management group that runs the facility. Councillor Miller.
I wish to move an amendment, Your Worship, that Council note that no funds will be expended until a management agreement with the newly formed Goolwa Oval Recreation Grounds Management Committee is endorsed by Council and executed by both parties. And I'm happy to speak to my amendment.
So the amendment's too far at odds with the motion to be accepted because it can't be enacted. You can't get the lease signed within 2 weeks. Nigel's advising me that it would be inappropriate to accept an amendment of such. You're completely changing the motion, not just changing you're changing the intent of the motion, not adjusting it. So the only thing you can do is if this were to be voted on and lost, then you could foreshadow a motion.
May I speak?
You can speak to it, yeah.
Thank you. I don't understand if a funding agreement with a federal body or the state body was to have a commercial grade kitchen, that it got value managed out, but I guess that's a separate discussion. I'm going to use a sporting analogy here. Given the subject matter and the users of the precinct, we have a salary cap that we are working within, and that's our endorsed annual business plan and budget for this current financial year. This is akin to list management. In my view, list management on this scale, just shy of $100,000, should occur at either a budget review or, for an amount in this magnitude, be the subject of a report from administration. And I note the answer to my 20th of May question on notice number 11A and B clearly indicated that future decision making around the kitchen, any decision on expenditure on the kitchen would be formally presented to Council for consideration. And I asked about where the funds would come from and why it was being prioritised, and it says, if this were the case, a budget option and financing costs would be ascertained and a report presented to Council for consideration, which may include an option for seeking grant funding. And generally, it's considered to be in Council's best interest, this is the answer to a question last month, not to own kitchen appliances and commercial kitchen fit-outs due to the short lifespan and heavy use of such equipment, with the preferred position being for the tenant to own the kitchen fit-out. That was the answer to a question I specifically asked about this kitchen. This is not a Council report. Administration, as I understand it, are still negotiating with the users of the precinct. Negotiations which the Prudential report undertaken before this Goolwa Oval precinct project began, identified user management as a significant risk that should be addressed before construction. And here we are years later, when the precinct has been operational since late 2019, and all the users have still managed to function there and make money. They've not paid a cent to Council for using the facility, unlike other sporting groups who run their own grounds, with no user management agreement and no cost recovery. A free kick for years, you could say. And my reading of all the history of this, and I know you mentioned, Your Worship, that it was a different administration, a different council. Well, it's different users probably than what we're extensively negotiated with around this. So, Council is the council and the sporting groups are the sporting groups. The administration and people change shouldn't make any difference. Continuing with the sporting analogy, we're trading here. This looks a lot like a three-way trade and feels like leveraging before we'll get a management agreement. And in the sporting world, trade periods are defined. In the local government world, it could be said trade periods are quarterly budget reviews. We've gifted users a mower, or loaned them a mower, valued at $35,000. We paid users $10,000 years ago to move out so construction could commence. Users have had exclusive access to an area for a gym, brand new toilets for which it's still unclear what the level of public access will be. Yet here we all are, currently undertaking list management and trading for $100,000. Last meeting, we brought forward from next year $10,000 to reseal the oval entrance. Last meeting, I asked questions about the kitchen, and that flagged the renovations would be $10,000. Now we're at $90,000. This should have been, in my mind, either included as a funded or unfunded initiative in the 2024-25 budget when it went out to consultation. We're going to later on consider consultation on the budget. There was no mention in that consultation or in our draft annual business plan a further $90,000 for the Goolwa Oval. This has been known for a long time. We've been negotiating with them for a long time. There's no consideration, as far as I can tell, of procurement or asset disposal for either boxed or unboxed lights or a new kitchen or the old. I won't be supporting this motion, given the number of questions I have and regardless of who the users or beneficiaries are. The equity and access headaches, or should I say inequity, in our broader community of the management of this precinct continues to create must be resolved. We need a sport and recreation strategy and something to guide us in how we fund these sorts of things. So in sporting analogy terms, this is a captain's pick and in my view falls short of good administrative practice and the management of public funds. My concerns are with governance and process, nothing more and nothing less, and I hope that's really clear. Thank you.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Yeah, I am supportive of this motion. I see this as a motion as completing a project, not spending more money on particular clubs. This is a council-owned asset, which we've been advised is not fit for purpose. My question would be whether or not the mover and seconder would be open to a minor amendment to the last dot point to say the replacement of the northern western window in the canteen area to a bifold stacking window, or an alternative such as a roller door. As I understand, that is approximately around $6,000 and is the same as what is already there on the current serving window.
Happy with that? I'm happy with that. That's fine. So is there any further? You've already spoken. Any Councillor Coomans?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. I was at that initial inspection of the complex when it was almost finished, and I guess I also noted that there was insufficient display cabinets facing the canteen servery, that the stove and hot plates were at the other end of the building, and in the middle was a dishwasher, and then it was set up as a domestic kitchen. I thought it was a shocker. However, and thank you also for the amount of work that you've done with that club again in setting it up and getting it to where it is now. However, I do have, in principle I support, but I do have a real issue with this one, in that my preference would be that the club takes responsibility for this, and we can do that either via a loan or a part grant. And that to me means that the club actually takes ownership of any modifications rather than council receiving the usual criticism. They could seek support from local businesses for products and services and build some good relationships with their community, and they're not tied to the usual strict procurement obligations that council is. I would expect it to be a great product, stainless steel, and the outcome at a better price. We're being asked to fund this out of the any surplus out of the Wharf restoration project. I don't see any connection between the Wharf and this club. You know, last time we made the Oscar W's pay for some of their work, and that should have come out of this fund, because they're actually on the wharf. So unfortunately, I'm not going to support this. I guess the other part is our back to basics, and to me this doesn't fit the back to basics criteria that the community is asking us to set.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you got a question?
Yes, my question is it correct to say that this would take our contribution to this project up to almost $3 million if it was $2.5 million that we contributed, plus 3.5, approaching 4 years of no user fees collected at $149,000 a year, and a mower and oval upgrade, resealing of the entrance, 10,000 to move out. I think we're getting pretty close to $3 million. Would that be right?
Through the chair, approximately right. The project is a multi-million-dollar project. There was $5 million federal funding. There was $800,000 state funding. There was council contributions. Off the top of my head, it is getting up over the $8-9 million mark. No one's shaking their head, so yes, you're approximately right.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Just quickly, this motion does have my support. I do want to acknowledge the contributions to the debate by Councillor Miller and the questions from last month. I've certainly taken those into account, but we have before us a motion from the Mayor. This is the information and the reality that we have to consider tonight. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is disturbed that a commercial kitchen wasn't delivered when that was the intent of the project, and I know that lessons will be learnt and looked at how that happened. But we do have to finish this project, and we and the community will benefit by finishing it properly. I'm happy that the money is coming from the contingency of the Wharf project. It's there. I think it is a slight risk taking that money, but we do have to finish this project well. So tonight, considering everything I've heard, I do support this motion.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Just reminds me of those arguments where they, you know, he said, you said, they said, we'd forget who said what. It's just been a comedy of errors from the beginning, and now we're at the sharp end and we've got to do something about it. We can't go back and try and correct what went wrong way back then. I just hope that we've learnt a lesson for the future when we do other projects. But it's a magnificent building. It's got the potential to have end of season major functions there, and it needs to have a catering facility that you can either get outside caterers in, or members of the organisation with that expertise can cater for a goodly number of people. It's got the potential to hold a large number of people, and they need to be catered for. None of it is to our satisfaction, but we have to, I believe, bite the bullet, press on, get the thing done, and let the groups get in there and be happy and functional and go on and make money and be prosperous. And I think we're stuck with it, so let's just vote on it and move on, and hope with the support of the current staff that we have that we never fall into this sort of situation again. Thank you.
Any further discussion? No, I'll just have exercised my right of reply, clarify a couple of things that are incorrect that have been said. The clubs haven't been using the facility for nothing since 2019. They were only able to move into this new facility at the beginning of the football season last winter, so it's 18 months they've been actually able to use it. All the previous time it's been a construction site which has strictly limited their use and their ability to do things there. it was quoted by a member as a captain's call. I can tell you it's not my call. My reason for putting this motion to you is for two reasons. Number one, if we don't approve it now to come out of the 23-24 budget, it won't happen, because I can assure you I will do everything I can to make sure we don't spend this money next year. And I've promised the community that's what I'll stand by, and I'll stand by it. You've got to stand by it as well. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't worry me. But this is a chance to do it without affecting our rates in the coming year. We've got a little bit of money in contingency in a project that we can put it to a good use. And the other thing I've got, I don't know about you, but I've got a sense of guilt and feeling of responsibility to the funding partners who gave us this money in good faith to us to deliver a sporting precinct fit for purpose, which it's not. And I have not, as some people comment, done everything for Goolwa. I have gone out of my way over and over the years to support the sporting clubs in this region. I got 100%, as Mayor McHugh's in the gallery knows, I got right from the beginning as a councillor behind Strathalbyn with their upgrades to their facility. I've gone down and bent over backwards to try and help Langhorne Creek with issues that they've had on 2 occasions. So I go and support as an individual and a mayor. I'm supporting things in our community where I believe they're warranted. If I didn't think this was warranted and we hadn't committed to the government that we would deliver, I wouldn't be putting this to you now. I've got a sense of responsibility, and I'm hoping that Rebecca Sharkey, who got us that $5 million, I can go to her again on your behalf in the future and she'll assist us to get another grant. And that's very important because she's extremely disappointed with the way this has turned out. That's it. That's all I've got to say. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. 7.2 is a motion from Councillor Coomans regarding funding for the Mount Compass Netball Courts. Do you wish to move that and speak to it?
Yes, I do, Mayor Parks. Thank you very much. I made some comments previously about the use of those netball courts and the benefits that it has for all of Alexandrina. Councillor Scott and I did do an inspection some little while ago, and there certainly needs to be done some work, and that's what the aim of this is. There was $19,000 that we've already allocated to it. There's probably some questions about the way we went about that, but we're prepared to put that back into the system, and now it's an opportunity for them to receive some real funding from the Rec and Sport. They've already had a professional writer involved in writing the application. It seems to look pretty good. It'll upgrade their 4 courts and then enable them to provide a venue for games for players for all of Alexandrina. The funds are coming out of next year, and the most important part is that our contribution, if there's no contribution, it's contingent on them receiving them receiving funds from Rec and Sport is contingent on council also providing its fair share. So I'd ask you to support this and allow the clubs to the netball club to be able to upgrade their courts and be really part of the netball competition. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Thornton?
Can I second it and ask that we deal with them separately?
Sorry?
Can we deal with them separately at all?
It's already been moved. It's 2. So, no, we're in 2. So you're seconding it? No. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson? Do you want to speak to it? Is there any discussion? Councillor Scott, can you just please put your hand up?
Sorry,
Councillor Scott.
I want to just a question. This is now on the other side of the. This is next year stuff we're talking about, isn't it? And I thought we were just not going to spend money next year, and that's for the philosophy of what we were about. And so, therefore, my question is, where's the 50,000 coming from next year that is apparently in there. So if someone could answer that, please.
Through the chair, the amount allocated of 50,000 next year will just increase the deficit by an additional 50,000. There is an item later in the agenda which talks about where the budget is at the moment. We'll give you a better idea of where we're at, but that would be another 50,000 onto it. But at the same time, the 19,000 that was allocated at the last council meeting wouldn't be able to be spent in this financial year, given that the club is out trying to get grant funding at the moment. They're not going to get that grant in the current financial year, so they wouldn't be able to spend that 19,154. That's why the 50,000 is getting put into next year. The 50,000 will only be spent if they can get an additional 150,000 from an external source.
Wouldn't the said 19 would be allocated to them to be spent when they could get the appropriate time? I don't think they have to. There'd be no requirement for them to actually spend it in 2 weeks. It would be they would have it as part of their bid to get the grant. I imagine is that correct? It's a question.
Through the chair, the 19,000 that was allocated last month, my reading of the motion is that we'd give them the 19,000 to upgrade courts. We'd only give them 19,000 to upgrade courts. We wouldn't give them 19,000 to sit in their account for another period of time until they were going to upgrade their courts. So I would only hand that money over when they would get additional funding to go ahead and complete that money. If you wanted to give the 19,000 just to sit in their account for a few years, yes, or until the grant is done, you could do that. But at the same time, my reading of the motion was that you'd only give them the money if they could go ahead and do it.
Councillor Maitland.
So my experience of how this grant funding works is that they apply subject to council agreeing to this. They're applying for 150k, here's 50 and 200. They won't get notification until probably January of next year that this money's available to them. They may or may not get it. So this is just a commitment to supply $50,000 towards the project if the grant is successful. And in having your netball courts upgraded, it's not a 2-week project, it's months to do it. And this could even roll into the following year, the 25-26 year, because they have to obviously have a development plan put in. They need to have their engineering designs all approved, and when the resealing is done, that has to sit for a month before they paint it, and then another couple of weeks or months before they can use it. So realistically, we might not even have to pay up that money until the 25-26 year.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. I would have thought that a donation is a designated gift, and we've elected to do it out of this year's funds from the money available, and I was expecting that we would be paying the money, remitting the money at the end of this year, and then into their bank account, and they will be using it for the designated purpose when they have the capability. So I don't understand why we can't continue to allocate the 19,154 from the current year, and then we're talking about whether there's a variance. And then our second question is, can we allocate a further $30,000 from the current year's budget on the same basis?
Through the chair, last month's motion said that the remaining funds, together with funds from the operating account to a combined value of 19,154, be allocated to the Mount Compass Netball Club to assist with the resurfacing of their netball courts. So that was saying, give the money to assist with the resurfacing of the netball courts. They can only do the netball courts if they can come up with 200,000. So the only time that you would hand over the money is when they have commitment of the remaining funds. So even if you committed another 30,000 this month, you're still not going to pass that money over until they get the other 150. And the accounting treatment of your operating budget is you would account for it when you hand the money over. If council wanted to hand over 19,000 on the off chance that they get the funds, then I would have worded the motion, well, I would have read the motion a different way. But my reading of it is you only hand the money over if they're going to resurface their netball courts.
I'm sorry to repeat, I still don't understand why we can't allocate it from this year's budget, like an accrual, like accrual accounting. To me, it seems appropriate. I'm terribly confused.
Yeah, this is the advice I've got.
Any further discussion, Councillor Miller?
Unfortunately, I can't support this because it's joined together. If we were talking about 1 and then 2, it would be so much easier. We're talking about part 1 deals with future draft the annual business plan for next year and budget and allocating money from that. And there's an opportunity cost with that. If we're going to do that, what aren't we doing? But now I understand that we're going to increase our borrowings to do it. The second one, I think, absolutely, we need to put it back in because there's no acquittal of this money for quite some time. So I'm bound by process here that I cannot support this, but it's not because I don't believe in the Mount Compass Netball Club's project and the merits of it. I absolutely do. What I have a problem with is that we are just picking, again, another project here that we haven't prioritised or ranked or dealt with under a policy or a strategy. We've had deputations from the Goolwa Bowling Club. We've had deputations from the Port Elliot Tennis Club. We've had, I know there's been others. So I'm struggling with how we're guiding these decisions. So I stress it's not about the merits of the projects. It's about how we are managing or the governance around these sorts of decisions. So I want that 19,000 put back in because it won't be acquitted. And it's in this year's budget. The top one is next year's budget. So I'm saying no because of a process issue that I can't see getting unhooked. And I would like to foreshadow that if this fails, I would like to move number 2 as a motion if this fails. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
We talk about the various projects that are around, and yes, they've come in the last few months, several of them, and I accept that. But one of them was for 400,000, another one was for 200,000, and I think that then there was this one. And the reason that I moved the motion a month ago was I thought at the end of the financial year, I mean, we're tight for money, for goodness sake, and I thought we weren't going to spend money next term, that there's always a little bit left in little corners of accounts. And I just thought that there was a bit in the donations thing, we could top it up. If you remember, my motion originally was for 50,000, and then I amended that because it was suggested that I should, so it came back to 19,000. But that's why I was doing it. There was a chance of getting 50,000 up. They'd have it. They could then go to the government and say, I've got 50, can you give us 150? There's our 200, there's our courts up to scratch. It's, I get frustrated. People want us to do things. At the moment you try and do something and try and be a bit smart and make things work when things are tight, and there's a million people to criticise you or shoot you down in flames or say things not worthwhile or whatever. I seized on the opportunity. I thought we could do it and get them their courts done. That's one project done. Then we can look at something else. We can look at the other one at Port Elliot. We've also got the change rooms at Port Elliot, I know, as well, and they're looking for grants. And I just thought we might be able to get something done so that we got those ones going and the whole thing was better. That's why I did it, and that's why I believe we should still be trying to do it, because I think you could probably find possibly another 30,000. I'm not down in the bank vault, but that could well find a bit more to make this thing happen. One is worrying about it when it's going to be acquitted. You get the thing there, give them, if you want to put a condition on it, fine. Then they go to the government, and when that all happens, then they can spend the money. I think if we get sort of stumbling around at this time, no one's going to be able to quit money in a fortnight, whatever that. So that it's just a fact of life. So that's why I did it, and that's why I think we should still support it, because they need it done, and there's an opportunity for us just to get that project out of the way in times that are going to be pretty tight. Next year's going to be very, very tight. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans, do you want to write a reply?
Yeah, it's probably not much more I can add. I mean, the fact of the matter is that it looks like their opportunity to obtain $150,000 from Rec and Sport looks really good. The application was really good, but it's not going to happen unless council gives them some support as well. And I think $50,000 is a bloody good investment in courts that need to be done. They've got 4 courts up there. If they can bring them all up to standard, we're all benefiting. All of our teams and things in Alexandrina are benefiting. So sometimes I don't get it, but I'd ask you to support it.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. 7.3 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding the Capital Works Program. You moved it. You must move it and speak to it.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'm just moving number 1 first.
Yeah, I'm doing them as they're written down. Motion number 1, yes. Yep.
Yes, may I speak? The quarterly capital projects report, I would like to see as a standalone report, not included as an attachment to the CEO's report. And I just think we should get it quarterly at the budget review. It would have a lot more context around it, and it would have more meaning. Most meetings, I sometimes ask, is there only projects that are at risk? And there's not really much commentary around any of the projects. So all this is asking is that it change to a quarterly report and stand alone, not be part of the CEO's report. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Coomans. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Okay. Okay, you have a right of reply. Nobody else has spoken on it, but yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to be really clear that I'm not asking for any, in this motion, any additional time. This is just about the timing of when the report comes. Thank you.
So put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? Against? That's carried. The next motion, motion 2. I think in future, Councillor Miller, can we have the motions as motions, not 1, 2, 3 in one motion, individual motions, so that makes it much easier for everybody to know what's going on. So if you want, we've what you call motion 2, if you should speak to it.
Thank you, Worship. Yes. So I've asked for this because we have a huge capital works program. Our role is to just have oversight of it. The way the report gets presented at the moment, it's just raw data of every single major project or capital project that we have on the go. In order for me to work out what it all means, I have to compare last month's with this month's. I have to read the tiny writing in the spreadsheet. All I'm asking for is all this needs to be is a 2-page report. It doesn't need to be a report on everything. And I would hope that our projects team are across this anyway. It's just, what's a significant project that's been completed in the quarter. I think that's something to celebrate and give us momentum. I think if we could just have a bit of an understanding, we're 30% through our renewal program, where it would just give us a bit of context around a raw data spreadsheet that has a little bit of commentary. Sometimes it doesn't change the commentary for months. So this was just a bit of and I note the officer's comments about how long it would take to prepare it, but I'd be happy to get this just once a quarter. So that's 4 times a year, and really understand where our projects are at, and if there's any risks, if there's some that are likely not to be completed. And given the issues that we have around our asset management, which I know are being resolved and are on the up, I just think it might have given us a bit more of a context and an understanding to avoid the risk of getting ourselves in strife in the future. It's merely a suggestion, and I hope that someone will support it. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Thornton. Do we have any discussion? Maidment.
I note here from the comments by the officers that it'll take an extra 2 days of work, and I really think that another report on top of all the other reports that have been called for is just going to be a waste of time. Just sit in the desk somewhere, and just the GM for infrastructure would obviously be able to utilise those 2 days in some other efficient way and get something done. That's what we need to do, get things moving, and I don't see the benefit of it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
I do appreciate the sentiment that Councillor Miller's trying to apply here, but I think it is very detailed and it is probably very prescriptive. What I would like to see is all of the reporting sort of reviewed, and us to be given high-level KPI performance reporting on this entire business. So the operating expenditure, how we're performing, staff headcount, all of the KPIs. So I would like to actually see it, be upped another level, and maybe not look at all the semantics of this. I am concerned about the amount of work that would be involved. If it was to replace the existing reporting in that format, I would be supportive. Not sure at the moment.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, do you wish to write a reply?
Thank you, Worship. Just very briefly, I accept the officer's comments and my colleagues' comments, and I don't really want to see KPI reporting on the performance of administration. I think our role is strategic and future-looking, and even the operating budget, I'm not really that interested in seeing that. That's the domain of the CEO. We're strategy and direction and policy focus, and so this was just something that would help the community and us understand, and I will absolutely accept whatever my colleagues resolve on this one. Thank you.
Now that ends the discussion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? In favour? Against? It's lost. We go to 7.4, a motion from Councillor Miller regarding an inquiry into and report on local government sustainability. It's moved by you. Do you wish to speak to it?
And just very quickly, Your Worship, I just wanted this to be noted by Council because it is a really good read, and the terms of reference for that House of Representatives Standing Committee, I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of this. Local government takes on a lot of responsibility to deliver many programs for federal and state, but it doesn't always come with equivalent funding, and then sometimes when it does, the funding is taken away, but the community has expected us to continue to deliver this. So there's no harm in this motion. It's just noting it and reading it and understanding the financial assistance grants and how little they are in the scheme of the sheer number of assets, public assets that local government looks after, that doesn't necessarily come with federal or state taxation support from our taxes. So really just asking you to note it. I found it a really interesting read, and it helps understand where we fit in the scheme of governance in this country. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thornton. Any discussion? If not before. I'll just clarify. This is probably a waste of valuable time. This motion, I'll say, because this report gets sent to every elected member by the LGA, as does every Friday. They send out an update on all the things that are happening within the LGA, all the events and bits and pieces that are going on, the report that you were advised on one of the Friday newsletters that it was done, and we were supplied with the copy of the submission when it was sent. So it's all been done, it's just it reaffirms everything we've as a council have lobbied the state and federal government for many years, and the other group that we're involved with, the Australian Coastal Councils Association, have also lobbied vigorously for that. And people should be aware that councils, of the total rates of tax of the total bill, councils get 4% of the federal take on of the total Australian take on taxes. Now, the financial assistance grants have not changed for years. They're currently half of what they used to be. They've only just last year started to get indexed with CPI. So it's very easy to understand why many councils are becoming unsustainable, because the federal government are not keeping up with the costs of everything that we have to do. So so that's what this is all about, and hopefully it'll get some traction. And I know there are a number of motions at ALGA on this very issue as well, and we've done them there before, but just need to get the money and then get the distribution of the money within the state, this state particularly, done in a fair manner, so that it's equitable the way it's divided. So do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Worship. I was disappointed that we didn't make a personal submission, a council submission on this, and I did raise that a few weeks ago now. But thank you for your words about the financial assistance grants, and if nothing else, this is an education piece for our community as well, Your Worship, which is why I wanted it on a public agenda, to draw attention to this issue around financial assistance grants, because they keep some councils operating, but I just ask for it to be noted. Thank you.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those in favour? Against? It's lost. 7.5 is Councillor Oliver, a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding the budget review, inclusion of updated longer-term financial management plan. Councillor Oliver, you'll move. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you. Just firstly, Mayor, the title should actually read inclusion of updated long-term financial plan without the word management. My request here is pretty straightforward. We are at a critical time and we need as much quality financial information and management tools as possible as elected members. My request is pretty simple, that once a quarter, when the limited number of budget review changes are made, that we not only look at the current budget, but we go, what's going to happen, what does this affect in the next 5 years? So that way we can see not just the cost structure we're in this year, but what does a financial decision do for the next 5? And it's a pretty simple process, and it'll keep both of the forecasting tools in sync with one another, because at the moment the budget review does not correlate to the long-term financial plan or forecast. So we do now have the management expertise or staff expertise, and we've put in new systems. There's no reason that we can't do this, and this is a very standard contemporary accounting practice. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Just very briefly, Your Worship, my understanding is how a long-term financial plan operates is that it is a long-term financial plan. We can't change the goalposts every quarter. We make decisions yearly, which should be informed by our 10-year long-term financial plan, or even a 5-year long-term financial plan. And I think that's so a long-term financial plan is just that. I think quarterly budget reviews are sufficient in that they tell us the decision we're making now is going to either put us ahead of our long-term financial plan or behind in our long-term financial plan, and that's critical information for me. And in theory, they should keep tracking along nicely together, but of course, some years we have a surplus, some years we have a deficit. But I think the situation we're in now just highlights, I don't want to say the inadequacy of our long-term financial plan. It was the lack of confidence that we have had in the data that's in our long-term financial plan. So I am not sure I want to see the long-term financial plan updated every quarter. I would like to see reporting against the long-term financial plan, which I believe we do. It's a review of the long-term financial plan and actually sticking to it, I think, is the issue. Not the plan itself, it's sticking to it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to sum it up?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily looking for the quarterly forecast to be officially updated as the long-term financial plan. I'm happy for it to be called something else, forecast BR1, BR2, BR3, and then this way we'll have a complete reconciliation of every variance in our books. Please vote for this.
That closes the discussion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Uh, 7.6 is again a motion of multiple motions, which is not the way it should be done. 7.6, Councillor Miller, current annual business plan and budget 23-24, outstanding unanimous resolutions and community donations. So you've got 3 of them included in one, so we'll do number 1 first. Are you moving and speaking to it?
Yes, thank you, Worship. So I would like, now that there is quite a bit of money in the community donations program, to request that, and this came about in annual business plan consultation last year, and every quarterly budget review has been waiting for a surplus. Well, now there's going to be a surplus in our community donations program. We have set a precedent in the past of doing donations above $1,000. They've been up to $5,000, and last month there was one for $19,000. So I'm just asking for $4,000 from this community donations program for the Strathalbyn and District Basketball Association, and as it reads on the screen. And I can't really say too much more. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for this one? Councillor Thornton. Any discussion? No? Do you wish to speak again, or no? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. So we do motion number 2. You speak to that, move and speak to it.
This is the same principle. This donation has been been waiting for a long time as well. The Strathalbyn Strikers came and did a deputation to council in February last year. They put a submission in the annual business plan. This is where I don't understand the decision making around other requests. So I'm asking for $4,000 from the community donation program towards this group, please. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for this motion number 2, Councillor Thornton? Any discussion? No? Do you wish to speak again?
Yes, I would really appreciate if perhaps for my next, well, there is no next motion, that it would be clear why council won't support these groups. I don't quite understand, but I'm putting this forward for a $4,000 donation from the community donations program, please.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put motion, it's motion number 2. All those in favour? Against? It is lost. So now we go to motion number 3. Councillor Miller, do you wish to speak to it and move it?
Thank you. Sorry, I thought an officer was going to make a comment on this one. I am withdrawing. I just want council to note that I am withdrawing this motion because I've had advice that the scoping study has been done and that it will be presented to council in August for consideration. So I'm asking, I'm not withdrawing it actually, I would like someone to second that we note that I withdrew it and the reasons why I withdrew it, because it has been done and there'll be a report presented to council. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder that it be noted that it's withdrawn? Councillor Thornton? Anyone you want to speak to it? Councillor Coomans?
Just a question. I would have thought that the minutes would show that it had been withdrawn.
They certainly will. Any further discussion? If you speak, you can speak and that will close the discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm just asking, I had an email that said there would be some officer commentary around this. I'm happy for it to just be withdrawn, but what I'm trying to capture is that it's been done and there will be a report coming to council, and I hope there is a report that comes to council. So whether you note it or not, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just wanting to, I'm withdrawing it, but I wanted it to be noted why I was withdrawing it, given that there's been no officer comment given here at the meeting, which was indicated to me would occur. So let me just withdraw it. If the second is happy for me, I'll just withdraw it.
So it's been moved and seconded to be withdrawn. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 7.7 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding the current annual business plan and budget 2023-24, outstanding resolutions relating to the Ashbourne Hall and Oval Committee. You wish to move it and speak to it?
Yes, this is another one that was, they made a, you know, they're doing everything right here and procedurally doing everything right. They're not asking for the full $46,000. All I'm asking for is if we come up with a surplus somewhere, that we give consideration to making a contribution towards this project. This is one where I'm struggling to understand why some initiatives get told to apply for a community loan, wait for a budget review, wait for a surplus, and then others we just go ahead and will support. So, you know, it's not even about the Ashbourne Hall. It wasn't even about the Strathalbyn Strikers Club. It wasn't even about the basketball club. It's about how we are picking and choosing projects to fund. This one has followed all the right process, done all the right things, and I'm really hoping that someone will second if we just keep scrolling down where the money is going to come from. We've been told don't put things in unless you're going to say where the money is coming from. I'm identifying funding and I don't really understand how I go back to the community and explain why some of these things aren't being supported. So I just put it forward. Hopefully someone will second it. Even if we gave them $2,000, I'd just leave it to my colleagues. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for this one? Seconder? Councillor Thornton. Any discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I think in this chamber we're presented so many initiatives and so many community groups that that come to us looking for funding, and I know all of us would want every community group and initiative within Alexandrina to succeed. We really do. We want them to succeed, but we have to look at the what's available and the need really carefully. And I just suppose I wanted to comment that I'm really looking at each request on its merits individually, and certainly trying to vote that we allocate funds from our ratepayers where it's going to have a really big impact, where it's really needed, and and that's difficult. Every time that I don't support something, as Councillor Gardner said before, it is really, really difficult. I really wish that we could approve every request that comes through, but I just wanted to, I suppose, provide comment that I'm just looking at each one on its merits. Thank you.
Is any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, when this came up before, that there was need out there, I went out and had a look, and there was a need. There'd been some washing erosion on the Strathalbyn side of the hall that had run down, and as you drove in, there were 2 or 3 big potholes. And I spoke to, and I think it was when Andy was here, and asked or suggested that one big truckload of material would probably bring it up to scratch, as far as, not to put bitumen on it, but would bring it up to scratch so you didn't go into rut and splash and this drain up on the eastern side. And I went back later on and the job had been done. And I was there the other night for the flood mitigation talk or discussion, and I thought that the whole thing had been fixed and was in quite good shape. And therefore, unless you're going to do a major job and put bitumen on it, and I thought that's sort of a project that I thought was beyond the pale for this coming year, it would be it was quite satisfactory for day-to-day use, seeing that it, I mean, it's not actually Rundle Mall, but I know there's a post box and stuff there, but it's, I thought it would be sufficient with what the work could have been done.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parkes. I guess the officer comments says some of my arguments in terms of there's some confusion about capital budget versus operational grant for this particular project. There's also comments made that this is an old estimate, so it will probably be insufficient to do the work that's required. So I guess the motion is somewhat flawed in its content and commentary. And again, we're talking about a surplus quarterly budget review. There isn't any. But I've got an alternative for this, and something that I will probably be pushing next Monday's meeting, is that there is a budget allocation at the moment for $161,200 to the Goolwa, Milang and Strath community centres. Now I'm suggesting that we further subdivide that to for the 10 halls. The 10 halls are Ashbourne, Tooparang, Mount Compass, Hope Forest, Belvedere, Finnis, Lake Plains, Langhorne Creek, Woodchester and Yundi. They've already been given $1,000 from a previous motion of council. I think it goes back to September. And I'm suggesting that we add an extra $4,000 from that 46,240 to each of those halls, which are all privately owned, so that each of those will have in total $5,000, which they can do with what they'd like. And I'm sure every one of them got very serious projects they'd like to do. And then the remainder would then be split up between the 3 council-owned Goolwa, Milang and Strathalbyn community. That to me is a much fairer distribution of our funds for our community halls and centres, where we seem to provide lots of money for what we own, but for what we don't own, we don't really care too much about. That's what I'm going to suggest for next week's when we consider the budget. And that's not any additional cost, that's just dividing up what's going to go to community halls and community centres much fairer than what it is. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidman.
Yes, this is more than a $46,000 project. It would be approaching $60,000 now. How much money can we allocate to this is unknown. If you drop $2,000 in their lap, they wouldn't even get the project started. I agree with Councillor Scott. There has been some remediation of all the potholes over the last 12 months. It's in a lot better state. It may not withstand this winter. I'd be looking to put this off just down the track a bit and get the the 24-25 budget out of the way.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans, yep.
Yeah, not one question, and I was going to include this in, but I understand that Australia Post have got 116 post boxes and 15 parcel pickup boxes. Has any approach been made to Australia Post to assist with the funding of the car park remediation?
We don't, not that Nigel knows of, no, we don't know. Is any further discussion? Councillor Miller, do you use your right of reply?
Thank you, Worship. This would be going towards sealing the driveway and I thought the motion was quite clear. I accept the decision of my colleagues, and I understand that if this is lost, there's still my live motions regarding this that will be considered in budget reviews. So all is not lost if this is lost. So I will hand it over to my colleagues. Thank you.
So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. Go to 7.8, which is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding the draft annual business plan and budget 24-25, the Strathalbyn town plan. And there's a motion there with quite a few points on it. You wish to move it and speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Worship. This is just for noting, and I just want to say that there was a brief officer comment that said the data hadn't been verified, but all of this information was provided to me by administration, so it's as verified as I can verify it, and that was on the 29th of April in an email. All I'm asking for you to note what's going on in Strathalbyn. And I put this motion up because when the annual business plan consultation feedback was emailed out to us, it had a cover email on it that said, if there's things that you would like considered or not considered, you need to have them in by a certain time. And because I understood that no motions without notice would be accepted, I put all of my motions on notice so that they could at least be considered. So that's why I have so many motions on this agenda. So this one is it's harmless. It is not asking for any money or any action. All it's asking you to do is note what's going on in Strathalbyn, what has been going on for a few years, what is going to continue on for a very long time, and we have a town plan that was endorsed 10 years ago, and quite a lot has changed in Strathalbyn, and I am worried which is that there's a risk that someone wants to delay this for a year, and I just want you all to be aware of this information if anybody is contemplating removing the funding for this town plan. So I ask that you note this information. Thank you.
So is there a seconder? Is there a seconder first? Councillor Thornton. Councillor Coomans, do you have a question? Or?
Yeah, look, I've got a question, and it goes down to the verification of the and possible correction of any of the information provided. I'd really like that sort of included in the motion somehow, because at this stage I understand what Councillor Miller's saying, but I reckon if it's coming from council, we need to make sure that the information is correct, and if there's some words included about subject to verification of the data provided and any corrections to that made, I'd be happy to support it then.
Through the Chair, Councillor Miller is correct. It did come from us. It came from, I believe, Matt Atkinson's department. All the information that was sent to Councillor Miller did come from administration. That line in the resolution came from myself late one night when I read all this data. I wasn't privy to that email, and I was rightly saying that I hadn't verified it before it went out. I have got verification post-agenda production that it is all correct.
Okay, no amendment required then.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidman.
I concur with what Councillor Miller said about the risk to not proceeding with the town plan, as quite a bit of the feedback in the budget roadshow there was, and subsequent submissions, was that this is something that could be delayed. The previous plan, I would say, was 90% of that was delivered on, and the risk is that developers will drive the expansion of Strathalbyn and council and the ratepayers and the people who actually live there will not have any input whatsoever. So we really need to provide direction to how Strathalbyn's going to grow into the future, and another 10-year plan. And it's one of those plans that's been successful, and we've got lots of plans in this building that are just gathering dust, but this one actually works, so I'd be happy to see this go through.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? So, Councillor Miller, do you wish to write it up? Councillor Coomans?
Point of clarification, I'm thinking Councillor Maidment might be talking about the next motion. We're talking 7.8, are we? Not 7.9.
7.8, yep. Councillor Miller, do you wish to write a reply?
Thank you, Worship. Just thank you, Councillor Maidment. That's pretty much how I was planning to sum up. Developers are driving what's going on in Strathalbyn. They're starting to drive what community assets are there, and I think we need to really have a look at this. So I'm just asking, all this is asking is to note that the data is the data. Thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 7.9 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding the draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25. Strathalbyn Town Plan renewal. Do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Well, this was a backup, Your Worship, so I would like to withdraw this, but leave it as it's in the budget. If there's no risk of it being removed from the budget, then I'll withdraw this and consider it later on when we are considering what's in or out of the budget, because at the moment it's in, so I'm not going to put it at risk of being voted down as being endorsed, so I'm just going to withdraw it. Thank you.
That's withdrawn. 7.10 is Councillor Miller, the draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25, Strathalbyn Waste and Recycling Depot. It's a motion moved by you. Do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Yes, and a similar reason why this is on the agenda is because we were asked to put forward what we want in or out of the budget so that at the next meeting it could be set. This is, if you consider what you've just noted at 7.8, this is absolutely critical that this remains in the budget. I've put in my background, I've put the reasons why this must stay. I found it interesting that in the Officer commentary of the report in February, they compared waste and recycling facilities for facilities that weren't in our council area and failed to mention that the Goolwa recycling facility is operated 7 days a week. This is not about Goolwa versus Strathalbyn. This is about a recycling and waste depot that is opened only 3 days a week in Strathalbyn, in a town that is growing exponentially every year. So I know that it's in the black at the moment, operating very well and very efficiently, but it has been identified as a risk to staff and the community by the Regional Waste Authority. An extra day opening might take a year or 18 months to get back in the black, but there's absolutely no doubt that it will, and the Regional Waste Authority had this in their plan and we asked them to take it out. So I would like this to be, please, included in the annual business plan and budget for next year, please. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for this? Seconder? Councillor Thornton. Any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm a little bit confused. I had thought that we had recently agreed on an informal budget review process on the 24th of this month. And I do note that only one elected member is using this meeting to validate the budget The rest of us have agreed to the process in just a week's time. And I'm very disappointed because I think it's circumventing the process, and if not hijacking the process. And in the future, I would like to ask that a defined and agreed process be spelled out up front that we keep to, as this could be perceived as a distortion of the process with a focus on one ward when the rest of us is sitting out. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Gardner.
I absolutely agree with Councillor Oliver. We've got a number of unfunded projects, and we're waiting until next week before we decide upon this.
Any further? Councillor Nicholson.
Sorry, I'd just like to make a contribution to the comments made already. I actually was of the understanding that Councillor Miller has explained that we were invited to bring motions to this meeting in order to set the tone and inform our special meeting next week. That was my understanding as well. So I can understand why these motions are in. In terms of this one presented to us, I think my mantra going in to this budget is that we have to prioritise the essential need to have. So I'm really not sure about being able to support this motion. Of course, I can see all of the rationale for it, but I do just wonder if we can wait a little bit longer until we can find some other savings before we introduce more operating costs. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Just a question, if this one falls over, does that mean it's off the program? Okay, because maybe I'll just move a formal motion then that this be deferred to next Monday night's budget deliberations. Can't?
Through the chair, if you defer the motion, then that means it's going to be brought back at the next month in the same, next week in the same format. You can vote upon it now,
okay, yeah,
and put it in, or what we're going to do next week is go into informal for a while, talk about all these options that you want in and out, and then we'll formulate some resolutions to be voted upon. Just to clarify what we're asking for when we did send it out last week, we were hoping for topics of projects which you wanted to discuss at tonight's meeting, and then we're going to formulate a final budget to be voted upon. When we got all the motions, most of the projects that we were going to debate are actually in the motions before you at the moment. So then what we decided to do was just to change it around, see what direction we got from these motions, and then next week we'll go into informal and discuss it a little bit more. So we did invite all elected members to talk about any projects that they wanted to talk about on this diet. We didn't ask for motions on notice, but they can be done in motions on notice in this format. We're just going to put it into that report later on, so we just changed it.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson, you've already spoken to it. A question?
May I ask a question related to what the CEO has just told us? Does that mean that next week there will be allowed motions without notice, or? Oh, okay.
Through the chair, it's not a motion without notice, because what you've got is a budget before you. What we're going to do is go into informal session to talk about what is going to be in and what is going to be out. And then what we'll do is put up items to be voted upon. It's not really a motion without notice, because you know the information before you. We're going to present all the information, and what you do with that information will then come on the night. I think for something so important, we will go into informal for quite some time, have a lot of discussion for it, and then formulate motions to be voted upon afterwards. Not just one big long motion, but just maybe have a look at it individually. If you can then determine what's in and what's out, then you can decide whereabouts the council position is, and then you can talk about what the rate increase is going to be at that stage and try and do it. It's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be very discussion-y, and then we'll get an end result at the end of the time. But it's not a motion without notice.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, I see no harm in voting all these down these particular motions, they will still be discussed next Monday, because I was under the impression that that was the opportunity to determine what was in and what was out of the budget in informal discussion. And I understand that these might have come in prior to the notice of motion cut-off point. But if we vote them all down, then they're still on the table for next Monday night.
Is there any further discussion? I just clarified that the understanding was very clear. Elected members wanted to have time to have an informal discussion around what's in and what's out of the budget. One of the constraints we have as a council is that we can't make decisions in an informal private meeting. So it was requested that we allow time in the budget meeting to go through the budget bit by bit. You could all ask questions, all understand what was in, what was out, what the implications were and what they weren't. And we work our way through it and decide what goes in, what goes out in an informal manner in front of the community if they want to be here. And then at the end of the night, you've got to the end of the budget, we looked at it, this is where we've ended up. What is the impact of that on the rates and our sustainability and our borrowings? So that was what the understanding was. And everybody, that's exactly what we were supposed to be doing. But this is trying to jump ahead of it, and these should be these are not being considered in a fully informed, open discussion that we really wanted to have with no restriction on time or discussion. So, Councillor Miller, you can sum up if you wish.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I guess I'm confused now, because I understood that you wanted direction tonight so that next week we were endorsing a budget at the 24th or 20, whatever date it is. That's what I understood, and you wanted to know so that at that next meeting you would know what the percentage was. So we're going to do this next Monday, and how are we going to know what percentage we're endorsing? Because the numbers won't have been crunched. And so I'm happy to withdraw these or have them voted down. I am so confused about what the process was and what I understood. So in fairness, that's why I've done this, and I accept that perhaps I misunderstood. And if that's the case, I apologise to members, but we can't make decisions in informal briefings. I certainly wasn't aware. I misunderstood the email, and I take responsibility for that. So yes, I'm happy to withdraw it or vote it down, but it's really difficult to accept that when earlier in the meeting we approved on a motion on notice $90,000 into our budget next year. Why wasn't that $90,000 considered as part of all the other priorities? And I get now that decision's been made, so it doesn't matter, but I'm really struggling following the bouncing ball when it comes to how we're building our draft annual business plan and budget. So when we get to consider the community consultation, I would like that very, very explicitly explained, how the process is going to work and at exactly which budget or which meeting we are endorsing the budget and how we're going to arrive at what that percentage is. So I would really like that made clear. Thank you.
End the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
I do need to ask this question, because in the motion it says that that particular item be endorsed as a funded operating initiative. If we vote this down, does it not then mean that it won't be?
No, it just means that it's lost and it'll be discussed again as part of the budget deliberation.
Yeah, but it's a decision of council not to fund it. Isn't that the consequence of voting it down?
No, through the chair, a lost motion is do nothing. It's how it was before.
In other words, it's not. We haven't resolved not to do it. We've just not supported the motion. It's different. So you can say we are not going to do this, or you can just not support it. I'll just clarify one thing. The statement made, and when things are made that are wrong, I like to keep it clear because we've got an audience. The $90,000 did not come out of next year's budget. It came out of the 23-24 budget, Otherwise, I would never have supported it. 7.11 is Councillor Miller, the draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25, enhanced, oh sorry, I apologise, we didn't vote, sorry. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. Sorry, apologise for that. We'll move on to 7.11, Councillor Miller, draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25, enhanced wayfinding signage strategy. It's moved. Councillor Miller, do you wish to move it and speak?
I withdraw this motion, thank you, Your Worship.
So that one's withdrawn. 7.12 is Councillor Miller, draft annual business plan and budget 24-25, the Agribusiness Officer. Again, you've moved that. Do you wish to move it and speak to it?
I withdraw it, Your Worship.
7.13 is Councillor Miller, draft annual business plan and budget 24-25, Lifeguard services at Goolwa Beach. You wish to move it and speak to that?
I wish to move this, Your Worship, because I would like to have a report prepared in time for the first quarter budget review that identifies alternative funding sources for this $28,000 for lifeguard services on Goolwa Beach. Last year, when we endorsed the budget, we endorsed writing to the state government and telling them we were no longer going to fund this, and then it appeared back in the budget. So that's why I'm not removing it from the budget. I am asking for a report to be prepared that provides alternative funding sources, and I've got a suggestion that follows on, which is what I believe we were asked to do, was if we're going to put things in or take them out, we provide reasons. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Coomans, yeah. Any discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Look, I think this is a really interesting motion. This is a challenging cost for council because we need that service to be delivered for our communities, but council and our ratepayers have been left footing the bill. I think it's really important that we do work very hard to look at how alternative funding for lifeguard services. So I'm supporting this one tonight.
Is there any further discussion? Do you wish to write a reply?
I thank you, Worship. All it's doing is asking for a report. I don't see any harm in finding out how we can fund this alternatively and still so that we can maintain it. This is a cost shift as far as I'm concerned.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. 7.14 is Councillor Miller, the draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25, Goolwa Beach boom gate installation. It's moved. Councillor Miller, do you wish to speak to it?
So this carries on from my earlier motion. This is suggesting an idea of how we could actually fund lifeguard services and many other things. If we would actually just put a boom gate on. We have a lot of people come down to our area and use our services, increase our waste management costs. I know it's great for business, and of course I would never do anything to damage that, but most people will come anyway. Whether they pay on this to go onto the beach or not, I'm sure they will when they bring their boats and go on there. We need to just start getting creative about this. So either way, if this is supported, I would hope that our revenue strategy will look at things like this, because we really need to start looking at how we do things that reflect the burden or not the burden, but the challenge that we face when we have a tourist destination in our council area. And so I just put this for council to consider. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Thornton. Any discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. While I agree with this idea in principle, I think it is important that we do wait for the revenue strategy on this one, which I would fully expect to consider this initiative. and with the previous motion already asking for a report to look at alternatives to fund the lifeguard services, I'm not sure that this specific motion is necessary.
Councillor Maidment and Councillor Coomans.
Just a question. I do remember many years ago that there was a report prepared for the installation of a boom gate, so I don't know that there's necessary to... Oh, I mean, there might be a few updates you might need to consider, but the costs and how that would work. So maybe we get one of those dusty reports out and flick it off and see what's happened.
You're right. There was a report done. Councillor Coomans, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I just had some questions. You know, obviously there's going to be a setup cost for this is going to be enormous, and I'm assuming that would be included as part of the report, what that would be. And we're asking for it to be at the first quarter budget review. Do we expect the revenue strategy to be in place by then as well?
Through the chair, the council has already adopted the revenue strategy, but what the resolution asked for was an action plan to be brought back. I can't remember the due date for that one, but the first quarter review was rapidly approaching.
Okay. And I guess the other thing I'd like to have included in the report is similar to what other councils do in their beach access. They have they involve community groups who then share in terms of the funds that they raise. Like Onkapringa do it, was it Aldinga Beach? The surf lifesavers actually staff the access to the beach, and there's a sharing of fund, which provides an income for the surf lifesavers as well as an income for council. So I'd like sort of that part of that to be included as well. Look at that.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. I think with this there's a lot of issues of equity and other things have to be considered, such as who pays, how much you pay, should there be exemptions for local people, for local ratepayers. Are we running the risk of just cherry picking an easy item? You know, other issues like car parking in the main street, car parking at the supermarket. You know, I think that this is one of those issues of equity that needs to be much more holistic in its review, as against just cherry picking the car park access on the beach. So I'd like to see it as part of the broader revenue and equity considerations of council, not as a one-off now.
Any further, Councillor Livingston?
Just going on from what other members have said, I don't support this motion at this point in time. I think we have the revenue strategy action plan which is being developed, which would consider an option such as this. But what I mainly am struggling with is, it would, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's other organisations, other stakeholders involved. It's not up to council to install the boom gate at that location. And the other concern that I have in particular is the Surf Life Saving Club do regularly go down there in summer periods with a jar and get donations from people going onto the beach. So I think if we were responsible for the complete maintenance of the beach, sure, but I can't support this motion at this point in time.
Is there any further discussion? So Councillor Maidment was right. There has been a report done on the idea of a boom gate on Goolwa Beach, and you could pick the pieces up every Monday morning when somebody's driven through it. If you put it there, somebody will go through it with a four-wheel drive. You'll be continually replacing it, and then you've got an environment there. You couldn't get much harsher than the environment there to put something in. I wouldn't support this because, number one, we've done a report on this, we've looked into it already, but we're in the middle of working with SAPOL and SA Water over the problems involving access to Goolwa Beach and permit systems and cost recovery and ways we can go about it. So we're already working on it, and it's costing us nothing except a bit of my time, Nigel's time and Alan's time to go to the odd meeting. So let's see what the outcome of that is, and see if we can come up with a good result for the community. The idea is to stop, number one, stop the wrong vehicles going on the beach so that we don't have vehicles bogged there all weekend, and so that it is for four-wheel drives, and then look at then what is a good way of is there a permit system and things like that. And with technology today, you can run a permit system without a gate, and you can look after your ratepayers, and there's no problem. So, Councillor Miller, do you wish to write a reply on that? Put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. 7.15 is the draft annual business plan.
I withdraw this motion. Thank you.
Withdraw that one. 7.16 is the draft annual business plan and budget 2024-25 encounter bikeway design. There's a motion moved by Councillor Miller. Do you wish to move and speak to it?
I would just have a question first. So the encounter bikeway design then will be discussed at the budget review. The draft annual business plan and budget meeting. Then I withdraw this motion as well. Thank you.
It is part of the budget. It is part of the budget considerations for next week's special meeting. So withdraw it.
If these are going to be discussed, I'll withdraw these as well. Thank you.
Yep. So 7.18 is the Councillor Miller, the draft annual business plan and budget 24-25, the Armfield slip viewing platform.
Yeah, I'll just, if this is also going to be discussed, then I will withdraw this. And again, apologise to my colleagues because I misunderstood the memo. And the same for the next one, I'll withdraw that too because I misunderstood. Thank you.
So we go to section 8, which is administration reports. 8.1 is the proposed Strathalbyn Soundhill. Sorry, Trevor, it takes so long to get to this. The other bits have got to come first. So we've got a recommendation 1 and 2. Two options really, one or the other. So is there a mover for one of them? Yeah, shall we move? So let's do Nigel, get this right. Yeah. So we'll do 1 first, which is to receive the engagement and the submissions. Move, Councillor Oliver. You'll speak to it. No. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? Plenty of input. No. So I'll put that recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Now we go to recommendation 2, which is removing the sound shell from the budget. Move, Councillor Thornton. Seconded, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Could we please be provided with details of the original design and the original costing that was done several years ago, please? At some stage?
There was never actually a formal design done to the proposal. So the discussion was to look into, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, we redid that wall, that stone wall, fixed all that up, and the idea was that runs on the backdrop. The idea was to look at incorporating into the back of that some tubular steel or whatever sleeves that would be out behind the wall and wouldn't be visible normally. And then when there was an event like Christmas where the Angus flows, you would come along with some poles that were supposed to be bent that go into those sleeves, and a cover went over it and became a temporary shade sail or weather sail for the sun if it's hot and sunny. As an idea of let somebody look at it. And that's about as far as it's really got as looking at it. Councillor Maidment, do you want to say a bit about that?
Yeah, look, I'll back that up. That's exactly the scope that was delivered to the designer. I did meet with him on site with former Councillor Keeley and Mr. Jenke, and these ideas were thrown at that consultant with it, and the actual stage was going to be demountable, so you could take it away, because that area does flood two or three times a year. And what we've been delivered is the Taj Mahal, and we don't need that in. I have concerns around the heritage of the advisor agreeing to that particular design, and for all the reasons Mr. Jenke has delivered tonight, he doesn't see it as a functional piece of kit, if you like, in that space. And so the Mayor's exactly right. It was just going to be unobtrusive, only pulled out for functions that happen there from time to time.
Any other discussion? No, just a matter. I drove through Strathalbyn many times, but I drove through Strathalbyn with a friend today, and as we drove past the Memorial Gardens, the comment was, the gardens in this town are the most beautiful gardens I've ever seen in any town anywhere in Australia. And what a credit it is to our staff to look after. They do a beautiful job. So just, the last thing we want to do is spoil the aspect of that. So, Councillor Thornton moved it. Do you wish to say anything? Councillor Scott?
Yeah, just very quickly, having been there on a number of occasions for the Christmas festival and everything, I can see merit in something being there along the lines of what you suggested. I'm afraid I can't support what we saw on the screen tonight, but I think something that we put in there and set up with a sailcloth over the top of it would be ideal for those summer events, and it could be taken away and you still have the very nice area. So that concept I would support, but perhaps not this year, that's all. But that's the way I think we should be going, not some major box structure.
So Councillor Thornton, you wish to? Yep.
I have to agree with Councillor Scott there. I think in years down the track we can look at doing a simplistic design that won't impact too much on the area, but we've had loud feedback from the community that says they don't want the proposed structure, they don't want to spend the money, and they don't want the structure there at all, full stop, currently. So I think we should listen to that.
Ends the discussion. This is recommendation 2. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? Councillor Scott, are you with us or against us, or where are you?
Remove it. I'm in favour of removing it, yes.
Can you please vote when we're voting? It's carried unanimously. 8.2 is the restoration natural burial ground proposal for the old Goolwa Cemetery to go to public consultation. There's a recommendation there before you. Is there a mover? Councillor Scott, and seconded Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Maidman.
Am I able to make an amendment here that because we have that land at Ashbourne, which is an Ashbourne Cemetery, which is also able to be used as a natural burial site, and I'm sure that the people north of the Finnis would rather be buried closer to their place of residence than having to trundle all the way down to Goolwa to look at the grave sites of their loved ones. So this is only proceeding to public consultation. It won't cost us any extra money to actually include it's a pristine site at Ashbourne. There's no one buried there at present, so I'd like to see that included in the motion if possible.
Alan, do you have any comment on that one?
Through the Mayor, I just want to make the point that this site has been thoroughly scoped by the organisation that's going to undertake this this work. They have not scoped any other site. I would suggest that they would need to do that to ensure that they could deliver what they could on the ground. So I would be cautious about throwing that site into consultation when it hasn't been fully scoped for this type of undertaking.
You'll close the debate if you speak. A question?
Would it be feasible to put a point 3 that the proponents be invited to scope Ashbourne as well as just another line in the motion? Is that just a suggestion? What
do you think, Alan? I think my thoughts it would be better to do a do a fresh recommendation that we ask the Nature Foundation to look at Ashbourne. What do you think? Yes.
Yep, that'll allow them, sorry, through the chair, that will allow them to scope that properly and be able to bring back their recommendations for that site.
So Oliver.
I just wonder if that should not be extended to any other sites in the area. Maybe there are more than just Ashbourne. And I guess one concern that I had is how do we prevent a rush by non-residents dying to get in here?
Any further discussion? No? You've got a question? You've already spoken to it.
Yeah, it's a question really. Given that there's no burials at Ashbourne, is it possible that these people could be invited at very little cost to go and scope that particular land, because it was inherited? Well, I better not continue on with that, but yeah, just to ask them.
We can ask them. Any further discussion? It's obviously created some interest. David Bevan wanted me on ABC this morning to talk about this, and they were quite interested in how the bodies were going to be prepared before they go in the ground, because there's no coffins, and also how they identify the sites and all about it. It was very interesting, and we had a very good report from one of their staff into it. So created a bit of interest, which is good. So, Councillor Scott, did you wish to speak to end it, or to put it?
I think it's
okay. Right. So that ends the discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Do you want to have a 5-minute break before we go into the budget item, in that which is just receiving the feedback, or do you want to keep going? And I mean 5 minutes, not 10 or 7.5. 5 minutes, so we'll be back at 8 o'clock by that clock. So we'll now resume the meeting. 8.3 is the draft annual business plan and budget 24-25 public consultation outcomes. There are 2 recommendations. One is that we receive the notes and that we approve the adjustments which improve the position. But so is there a mover? Councillor Livingston, seconded Councillor Scott. Any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? Yeah, against. It's carried. That's recommendation. Oh, there's another one down the bottom. Now there's 3 in recommendation 3 and recommendation 4. We did them 2 together.
No, I don't think.
Well, I read it out. Yeah, I did read it out. So you understood we voted on recommendation 1 and 2. That's what I thought. I read it out. Yeah. So now we just to save any confusion here, I'll do.
Yeah, through the chair, just to make sure now that you have voted on 1 and 2, you realise that we did do a slight adjustment earlier today on the additional rates from property growth. We changed it from a 1.55% increase to 1.82% increase. That's the growth. So that changes it from 165,000 to 293, and therefore the deficit is down to 4,112,675. So they were changes from what was in the agenda.
Could I please ask the CEO if he could lift his microphone so I could hear what he was saying? Thank you.
Do you want me to go again? Oh, that's better, isn't it? Yeah. Just clarifying that the growth figures we have changed from 1.55% to 1.82%. That's the new properties coming on board. So therefore that has increased from 165,000 to 293,000 extra revenue. That doesn't change the average rates increase for existing ratepayers, but it does change the deficit down to 4.112675, or 4,112,675. There was a couple of adjustments made tonight, so we'll bring them back to the next meeting. We'll also go into informal discussion to talk about many of those other items. We'll also have items which were highlighted during the budget process to be voted upon. Some of those were in those motions on notice earlier tonight, but we'll bring them back. We'll work out what's in and what's out, and then we'll look to see if what the rates increase will be. We will model certain increases, but if there's a different increase which is moved on the night, we may have to bring it back to a further meeting after the special meeting, depending on what council decides.
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit disappointed because recommendation 2 included this table, and I have a real issue with the Strathalbyn pool extension of 1 month, and had some words to say about that. Is there an opportunity for us to reconsider that so we can have a decent debate about what's in and what's out?
Through the Chair, that was something which Council considered at the May meeting, and Council voted that amount would be put in. They voted that without knowing what that amount would be, but that is currently in, and that is resolved by Council to be put in it.
So by motion, it's in concrete.
It's in, unless the rescission motion comes through for the special meeting.
So, yeah, just so you understand, Councillor Coomans, it was in before tonight. This table didn't put it in, it was put in by a previous resolution. So we move to recommendation 3. Councillor Miller, you're moving that?
No, I have a question, Your Worship. I just want to understand exactly what's going to happen next Monday, because I think the CEO just said unless a rescission motion comes forward for the next council meeting. Do you mean for Monday when we're considering, or the next ordinary council meeting in July? So are we able to put written notices of motion to the special council meeting? Are we? I'm trying to follow. Recommendation 3 says that the budget's going to be presented for adoption at the 24th of June. But if things are coming in and out on the 24th of June, how on earth are we going to know what their impact is?
We'll be able to work it out on the night. It'll be running. We'll have a computer just running the system. It's straightforward, and there are no notices of motion to the special council meeting. Where we start.
Through the Chair, the only rescission that we would do is when we go back up to the swimming pool one. That was a rather specific one that says that it's in. It was a definite that this is in, not considered, but in. All the other items have been considered, put out for public feedback. Feedback has been given, and then you'll consider them on the night. What we were originally going to do was do some ins and outs in this item here on this night. And this is why we sent it out to council saying, what items do you want to have a look at one by one? And the items that came back were in the form of the motions, which any elected member is entitled to do a motion. And that's why those motions were considered earlier in the night, and we didn't put any items into this one for consideration because that would duplicate what was there earlier. What we're going to do at the next meeting, and this is what I was saying earlier, is that we'll go into informal and we'll discuss many things, and we'll formulate motions to then be voted upon. We will keep a running total of where we're at. At the moment, I know that we're at 4.1 plus anything that was changed earlier in the night, and then when we go through the items at the next council meeting, at the special meeting, that we will add them to it, and I'll have a running total on the screen at the time. It is going to get messy and it's going to get complicated, and I will sometimes ask to slow down to add things up. The Mayor is correct in that you usually do not have motions on notice at a special meeting, because usually special meetings are scheduled with a couple of days' notice or whatever. If you're going to be doing a motion on notice, as councillors are aware, you have to give 5 clear day notice. You know, I've given you the heads up that we're going to have a special meeting on Monday next week. Is that the 24th? Yes, Monday next week. So I don't want motions on notice. What I want to do is, as I've said before, is to go into informal discussion, have questions asked of me and my team of, well, do we need this? What's the ramifications if we take that out? What do we put that in? You'll recall last July when we moved the budget, you'll have a heading that says that the following items are added in or taken out, and someone can move those motions on the night. You are considering the budget, so you can change things around. We will create the templates to populate, and we will populate those templates for consideration after we have those informal discussions, and allow you to vote upon them one by one and try not to put through a bulk resolution all at once. I will lead you through this process step by step by step by step at this next council meeting, so that you can get the best outcomes for council and the community, and so that you know exactly where you are, you know exactly how much money you've got in the budget. I will then tell you exactly how much borrowings you're going to have, and what the effect is, not on the immediate, but in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I will give you all that information before you then decide upon what the increase is going to be.
Councillor Oliver, are you moving recommendation 3?
Yes, I'm happy to. Also
Can you put the microphone on?
I'd like to ask a question and follow on to the CEO's statement. So at the special workshop next week, will we be able to ask or debate the level of the rates increase? So will I be able to say I would like to see it at 5 to 6.5% and have that debated? Will I be able to ask that the CPI assumption be changed from 4.8% in line with the actual CPI of closer to 3.6? Will I be able to ask that we consider a reduction in existing operating expenses during the next 3 years? Will I be able to ask for consideration of a reduction in the number of full-time equivalent staff currently on the books? Will I be able to ask for a return to break-even or surplus fiscal position within 3 years? Will I be able to ask for an acceleration of asset sales to decrease debt? Will I be able to ask for the undertaking of a holistic total rating review by next year? Will I be able to ask for reduction or deferral of any capital expenditure? And will I be able to ask for consideration of any changes to employment conditions to make further increases reflective of productivity improvements and flexibility trade-offs, so that staff are not limited to the CPI in regard to their future?
Through the chair has the message. You can ask whatever you like. I might say yes or no to some of those things. But just to give you a guide, you will set the rates increase. Council will set the rates increase of what it's going to be. That doesn't mean, changing what the assumption is of CPI is not going to change anything. Well, at the moment we're going for 8.3. Council needs, at the moment, 8.3 to go up. If that's 3.3 plus 5 or 5.3 plus 2, it doesn't matter. We're proposing 8.3. What council will decide upon the night is the rates figure. You will need to determine what that rates figure is, but you also need to determine what it's going to be for immediate term and into the long term. You asked about, can you do a cut 15 staff? I'm saying no to that, because you need to identify what areas of service that you want to do. This is why we're proposing that you do these rates reviews, so that you can determine, not rates, sorry, bad word, rate review, service reviews, so that you can determine exactly what we've got at the moment. If you make changes, what changes, what the effect is on the community and what the effect is on the staff. As I've explained many times before, we have staff with a non-redundancy clause. So you can't say cut 15 staff because I have non-redundancy clauses. They'll still be in the organisation. You can't say don't replace people when there's vacancies because they are doing a function and that function can't stop if they're not there. You asked the question of can you determine that what the level of salaries is going to be for team members here, for example, not going up by CPI. You can set the budget, but you can't tell me how much I pay the staff. That's a CEO function. You're asking how to get back. Can you instruct me to get back to a balanced budget within 3 years? You can set the goal of that, but you need to move these levers to get me there. You need to say what services you're going to cut, what rate rises you're going to do, what services you're going to deliver to the community. So generic comments of do this, do this, do this can't be achieved without science behind it to say exactly what you're going to do to the community. But I can lead you through that process in informal discussion next time. The other one you asked about was the rate review. Can you determine to do a rate review? No. Not at the next meeting without a rescission motion, which is exactly what we were talking about before. There's an existing resolution on the books that says that we cannot do a rate review until the next election. In the absence of a rescission, you can't instruct me to go do that. I think I answered the majority of that.
Thanks for the clarification.
So, Councillor Oliver, you're moving recommendation 3. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We go to recommendation 4. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston. Second by Councillor Coomans.
Can I speak?
Yes, certainly, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not moving that because I want to make a change.
So you're not seconding it? Well, let's get a seconder before you speak to it. Move Councillor Gardner. Now, Councillor Coomans, you wish to speak to it?
Well, I'm going to ask the council to include an extra dot point in the formal special meeting of next week, because at this stage we've got the opening of the meeting, and then we go straight into informal discussions with leave of the council. I think before we do that, we should allow an opportunity for some representations to the council. We've had the public consultation. We've had one heck of a lot of information come back, probably more than we've ever had before, and a lot of our residents have read what's in there and would really like to have an opportunity to make some further comment. And I'd like that to be the same as we normally have, as per our normal council meeting. That dot point 2 would be a option for representation, presentations. I think we allow for up to 3. So I'd like to see that. Yes. So
we already have 2. So it's done. We're doing it already.
It is in?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's make that clear then, please.
So, Councillor Livingston, you're happy to include that as a mover?
I don't take issue with it if it's already planned. What I take issue with is the choice of who is making deputations when we've had a formal consultation period, which has been open up to the entire community.
The deputation process is the same as normal. It's not for us to. We don't go to people and say you come and do a deputation. It's up to members of the community to request to be able to do one. So we've had 2 requests which meet the criteria. So we'll be accepting. If we haven't already, we will be accepting those.
And what is the cut-off period of time for requesting a deputation?
We looked at that, didn't we?
3 days.
3 days, I think. Yeah.
And what if we have 10 requests?
Well, we don't have to take that many.
Okay.
So, Councillor Gardner, are you happy to have the thing? Yes. We're going to have it anyway, yeah. So any further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
My apologies for slowing this down, but I do wonder whether I could request a couple of slight amendments. I wish that for the second dot point in the original agenda, for the words in the brackets to be deleted so that we are unconstrained in our consideration, so that we read recommendation to seek leave without the words with a focus on items identified from community feedback. Sorry if I speak too fast.
Absolutely.
Secondly, I'd like to request that the fourth dot point, the words based on adjustments made be deleted. So again, we are unconstrained in our consideration of the budget.
Councillor Livingston, you happy with those changes? No.
I'd rather not.
No. So that's okay. Councillor Gardner is the seconder, she won't accept it, so they won't be accepted. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
I have a question about special council meetings and how they are convened or how they are initiated. And my understanding was that a special council meeting is exactly that, a special council meeting. It is requested when the request is made for a special council meeting, accompanying it is an agenda that says what will be discussed. I just want clarification on that, because we just heard someone say, I believe there are now deputations coming to the special council meeting. When were we going to be told about that? And this is not an issue with whether we have deputations or not. This is a procedural question that's governed by the Local Government Act about how special meetings are conducted. And so I wish for clarification on that. Thank you.
Respond to that.
Sure. We did receive requests in writing, because normally a special council meeting wouldn't be known necessarily because it's done at short notice. This one was. We have been through the Local Government Act, the regulations, the meeting procedures. None of them are really silent on that. I did make, because we have an agreement with a law firm, so I did make a phone call, which doesn't cost us money because it's within our sort of agreement we have with them today, just to confirm that and what our requirements are. And because the regulation 11, I believe it is, about deputation still stands, even though it is a special meeting, and because of our notice period in our meeting procedures, it would still be accepted that council should accept those deputations because they've met the timing requirement. And it is a regulation, Local Government Act, that the deputations can happen. So, otherwise we could always schedule really difficult decisions to happen on a special meeting, but we want our community to be able to have their say.
Councillor Miller.
I do not also believe that we can restrict to 3 deputations. If we get 20 deputation requests, we accept them, and if we refuse them, then they come to council for a decision as to whether they get heard or not. So
very kind of you to tell us the rules. But
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, Your Worship.
The rules state quite clearly 3 on the same subject is the maximum. The only subject at the council meeting is the budget, nothing else. And the agenda doesn't go out with the notice of the meeting. You're advised there's going to be a meeting. The agenda will go out before the meeting with what is to be discussed at that meeting in the agenda. So it doesn't have to go out now. We were uncertain as to whether we could take deputations at a special meeting or not. But as Tash said, we got clarification that providing they were lodged in time and there were appropriately requests, that we could, and they've ticked all the boxes, so that's fine. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Thornton.
I just have
Yeah. First of all, I want clarification of, is restricted to 3, and then he can refuse the 4th, 5th through to the 20th. But with the 4th through to the 20th, I believe Councillor Miller is correct. We would put that on the agenda to say that the refusal of the 4th through to the 20th.
It would
was
be
performed.
reported to the next meeting of council
Yes.
that it was declined, and council could choose to take a vote whether they wanted to hear them or not at the next meeting.
Councillor Thornton.
I just have a question. Were the deputations requested in general to be heard at a normal meeting, or they were requested for this specific reason?
They were requested for that meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
So, like, what happens if they're all Strathalbyn people, like the equity there?
It doesn't matter where they come from. We don't discriminate where they come from. We have no say in where they come from. That's entirely up to who puts it in and what's the matter is. Councillor Scott.
Yes, I thought last meeting that, Nigel, you said that we would move it all on by a week and that we'd have our next week sorting it all out, and that it would be accepted and passed at a subsequent meeting after that. That was what I thought you said. Now it looks like we're having the big workout, and right at the end we're going to say that's it and pass it on the same night.
Oh, through the chair, I had many suggestions from the room at that last meeting, and I took on board a lot of those suggestions, and this is the procedure that we've come up with doing. Council has the ability at any time to defer the decision to another meeting. What we're proposing to do is to do a lot of the work at the next meeting, but as I said, if we get to a stage where we need more information or we need to go away and remodel another rate increase, we will do that. That is up to council on the night. It could be done at the next special meeting on the 24th, but if more time is needed or more clarification is needed, we can have another special meeting after that. Let's just get it right.
The other thing, it's important to understand that you can't just have an informal get-together to talk about the budget, because in effect what you are doing, you are making decisions within that meeting of what to include and what not to include to vote on. You cannot make those decisions without a public forum in a special meeting or a meeting. Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, I had a question in relation to what our time limit in setting the budget. I understand it's the 15th of August is the final date for a council to set its budget.
It's either the 15th or 30th, but I think you're pretty much on the money there. I have to double check. That is definitely the legislative requirement, but functionally as a council and for us to operate, obviously it would be administration's preference to get it adopted before the end of financial year or very early in July.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to have the special meeting and the informal discussion that is proposed here. We put out a draft budget to our community with a number of items that we suggested could be funded or unfunded, and the associated rate, average rate increase that went with the draft. We had a really significant amount of community feedback, and I know all of us would have heard from the communities that we represent with a range of feedback, and we have a better understanding now of what the priorities of our communities are and the impact that a rate increase will have on them. It's really important that we have an opportunity to discuss that feedback and look at modifications to the budget going forward. So I think echo the other comments made in the chamber tonight that I can support this recommendation on the proviso that this special meeting is going to be that opportunity that we're all looking for to make sure that we're getting what's in and out based on the feedback from our communities. And if that has to take as long as it's going to take, and I just hope that we will have that opportunity to really have some robust decision making. Thank you.
And the date it has to be into the government, finalised as the 15th of August. Nigel just confirm. And that's, as Nigel said earlier, if next Monday we start the special council meeting, we go into informal discussion and talk about all the things in and out. the community here listening to what we're saying, they're aware of what we're talking about, and then we're going to vote at the end. Now, if we don't finish it, if we can't finish it, and there's more information required before you can make a decision, we'll have another special council meeting, and we'll go informal again at that one, so that we eventually get it to the point where we've got the whole thing worked out, and we can put it to a vote, so that we can get we know where we are. Is there any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against is carried. 8.4 is proposed fees and charges of 2024-25, and there's a recommendation that they be adopted. Is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Thornton. Is there any discussion? Councillor Coomans?
Yeah, given that the updated form and thing was sent to us this afternoon, is there anything in there that you need to highlight to us?
Through the chair, there's nothing in there that I need to highlight. It was just showing the difference between last year's and this year's items. There's no changes.
And nothing stands out?
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.5 is the Regional Growth Fund, the Goolwa Wharf, sign and seal of the grant deed of variation, just authorising CEO and myself to sign that document. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion, questions? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. 8.6 is the Milang Environmental Centre, a new lease, and it's the community engagement outcomes, and there's a recommendation there of recommendation 1 and recommendation 2. Move, Councillor Scott. Is there a second, Councillor Miller?
Are we moving 1 or 1 and 2?
1 and 2. Is there a seconder for 1 and 2? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All that in favour? I'll start again. I'm getting tired too. It's all right. We can put your hand up though. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Page 8.7 is Strategic Land Program Group 1. It's a proposed revocation of community land classification in Strathalbyn, and there's a recommendation there of 3 parts, and probably can do them all at once. Move, Councillor Maidment. Second, Councillor Oliver. Second. Yes. Is there any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Just briefly, this would be great to get this off our books. It's landlocked, and we don't have to worry about it going forward.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I'm not waiting all night, Councillor Miller. I call for the vote, then you'll ask for against. You put your hand up when I said against. 8.8 is the Community Engagement Report for the Draft Community Coastal Flood Emergency Plan, the Murray Estuary Settlements, and there's a recommendation there, again with two parts. Happy to move that, Councillor Oliver. Second, Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Just very quickly, I just want to mention that having been involved in this was a great process. There was an incredibly high level of local participation. It was very successful, and it was a great communication forum. It's facilitated common understanding of all the flood risk factors that we have, e.g. tide, air pressure, river flow, barrage operation, and out of it there's been a truly engaged community grassroots plan. And thank you to the other elected members, Livingston and Gardner, who also participated. Thank you.
So Nicholson, did you wish to speak?
Thank you. I just wanted to make note of the opportunities identified for future work, and I would be really interested in seeing a number of those progressed, particularly related to a sandbag station and dumping for flood-affected communities after an incident. I thought that was a great list, and I hope that we can find time to have a look at some of those down the track.
Councillor Gardner, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you to the staff, council staff, because I think the process was excellent.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.9 is a community donation program quarterly report, which contains a string of requests for money at the last minute. You may recall I said to you some time ago there was a bit of money left in the fund. Let's leave it in there and let's not have a last minute grab from why haven't these people asked for this funding earlier in the year? I won't say what I really think because I have a bit more respect for the chamber, but I find it very difficult when you get a five, like on the death knock, all these, why haven't they come to us months ago? It's all throughout the years. It happens from time to time, and I was hoping it wouldn't happen this year. So there are 4 recommendations, each with 2 parts, I think. Oh no, they're not the first one, no. So let's start with recommendation 1. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you wish to move that?
Yes, I do. And I just want to query what the budget, what the actual amount is that's available. That says there is only 2,944 currently remaining in the community donation funding allocation. I believe that's not correct. Thank you.
That's the readjusted amount, bearing because you voted this evening to put the 19,000 back in. So, Councillor Gardner, do you wish to second?
A question, Your Worship. We have a process for community donation program. The process is that there are staff and members of council they go to Smarty grants. They go through a process, and then the little committee sits down and looks at it very carefully and decides which community donation will get what. I'm not going to vote for any of these because it hasn't come through the right process.
Through the chair, our community grants program are distributed that way. This program is the one that gets emailed around to council members for support. So the recommendations before you are ones that may not have been supported by all ward councillors that need to come to council under the donations policy, which is different to our grants. It's quite confusing. And now that council has earlier in the evening added the funds back in, there's actually more applications if you read through the body of the council report. It went at the time of writing this report, there was an amount only left in. So the policy also determines what order, like the timing they've received, is the order the application will be considered in. So there is, following these, another list of some other donations that we didn't put in your pre-populated resolutions because we didn't think we had the money at that point in time. So just bringing that to your attention.
So we're looking for a seconder. Recommendation 1, yeah, first that we receive that, Councillor Coomans.
Can I speak?
Yep.
I note you mentioned before about why people didn't know about this and applied before. I was at a meeting today of a brand new group that's just started up, and they've got some projects in hand, and I did advise them that there may be some money available in the community donation fund, and they'd better hurry up and put an application because it needs to be done before the end of, needs to be settled before the end of this month. So I'm thinking there's probably 2 groups who are going to be looking for upwards of $1,000, and I've encouraged them to do it this week.
Any further discussion on dot point 1, recommendation 1? Councillor Miller. Councillor Scott, you wish to speak?
Just a quick question. These ones that are, so we shouldn't even be doing. Can't these just be done with the, well, like they normally are with the local, with the ward councillors?
It's already been explained. They were put through that process and not supported, so it's come to council.
Oh, sorry.
So Councillor Miller. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would love to hear why these were not unanimously supported, and I suppose I invite any ward councillors to share with the chamber before we vote. Thank you.
We're not talking about the individual requests. We're talking about that we received the report with the amount of money in there, and I think it's inappropriate for people to start telling each other why they didn't, and what they did. It's up to the 3 ward councillors and myself to either support it or decline it. If all the 4 don't support it, it comes to council. That's the policy. So, Councillor Miller, do you wish to?
Thank you, Worship. Just further to previous comments about people making a rush on this at the end, the policy doesn't say when or anything around timing, and this fund is open up until the 30th of June 2024. We rate our community on this balance, so I don't think it really matters when people submit. We could close it off 10 months earlier, and we did in effect close it off at the last meeting when we exhausted all the funds. So I'm really delighted that there's $22,098 remaining in this community donation funding allocation. And I look forward to us considering the next motions. And I think this is supporting our community. I think we should make every endeavour to allocate this money. And I am happy just to note what the balance is. Thank you.
That closes the discussion. I'll put recommendation 1 to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. So now we go to recommendation 2, which you have the option of either approving or declining. Councillor Mabley.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest. I'm a volunteer at the National Trust, so I'll stay in the chamber, but I won't be voting. Sorry? Oh, okay, well, I'll vote then. Okay.
So we have that. Is there a mover for one of them? Councillor Thornton, you wish to move which one?
The approve. We approve.
So is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston, Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. We go to recommendation 3. Again, you can either approve or decline. So is there a mover for one of them? Councillor Bayman, which one?
Approve.
Approve that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miller, you're seconding it? Is there any discussion?
Sorry, Mayor Parks, I do have to ask because when we as individual elected members get an application for a community donation, there's normally some information in there about that they meet the criteria or things like that. All of that is sort of missing out of this. I guess I'm taking my guidance from 2 of the 3 elected members who are supporting it.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Maiden?
Yeah, initially I did vote for this to be approved, and they are desperately in need of a marquee because their events are all outdoors, on farm, and at sporting grounds where they need to have shelter for their officials. So it's got to be portable, and they don't have a specific home. They move all around the countryside. They were in Barmah last weekend, and they would have that signed, and possibly we could ask that they put a council logo on there as well to show that we supported them.
Close the discussion, so we'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? In favour? Against? Against. Thank you, so it's carried. Where are we? So we go to recommendation 4. Again, you can either approve or decline. Councillor Miller, you're moving one?
Yes, I am, and I just want to comment that all the applications are included as an attachment to the agenda item.
But what are you doing? Approving or declining? Is there a seconder? Councillor Thornton? Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship.
You moved it, so if you speak now, you'll close it. So is anybody else wishes to speak? Councillor Livingston?
I just have a question. Will the applications that have not been circulated to council members, will they now be circulated because we have more in the budget, or will that come back to next meeting?
If you don't deal with them, we can circulate them, or you could deal with them now. If the chair's happy with that. Circulate.
Can we just circulate them?
We can.
Is there any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Oh, you wanted to, sorry, right of reply, yep.
Thank you, Worship. I actually, in a similar vein to Councillor Livingston, was I didn't realise we were doing the last one. I thought there was still one more to follow here, because I would have asked that we endorse the other 3 that were raised and discussed in the agenda item and that were submitted and met the criteria. And I would like to, with the support of the seconder, add in the other 3 that were received after, and advised that the fund had been exhausted, but it actually hasn't been. Yes, so that would be the Strathalbyn Storm Basketball Team, $970. The Langhorne Creek Netball Club, $897 for tables for electronic scoring, and the Finniss District Hall, ironically seeking $1,000 for a kitchen upgrade. I think we should endorse those other 3 as well.
Well, not in the agenda. Have those been sent out to the members?
Yes. Sorry, Mayor Parks, they're attached, a second attachment to this, and they're noted on page 666.
Yes, put them in there. So, Councillor Miller, you obviously approve it. So, Councillor Thornton, you obviously approve it. So, is there any discussion now that's been changed? Councillor Maidman.
Question, if this is voted down, does that mean that those 3 uncircularised to the elected members and the mayor could be resubmitted?
If council, I would say if council, I know you're voting to approve them, so they could be recirculated because you're not saying not to fund them.
Is any further discussion? Councillor Gardner.
So I'm feeling a bit confused. There's $2,944 left. Is that right? If council decides to do the 4 of them, that comes to 2,900.
Councillor Gardner, there's 22,098 because there was 2,944, but this evening you voted to put the 19,100 from Mount Compass back into the budget.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's why.
I must have been asleep.
So is there any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. 8.10 is the FRWA Regional Waste Authority third quarter budget review 2023-24, and there's a recommendation that we receive that. Move, Councillor Livingston? No, oh, you've got a conflict of interest, don't you?
Yeah, I was just going to declare a material conflict of interest due to my employment, and I'm leaving the chamber.
So there's a recommendation there before you. Is there a movement for that, Councillor Maidment? Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. What's the next one? This one's okay. FRWA Regional Aquatic Centre. We'll wait for Councillor Livingston. FRWA Regional Aquatic Centre third quarter budget review 2023-24. Just recommendation that we receive that report. Move, Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to that? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.12 is the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority Strategic Plan 2024-34. There's a recommendation that we...
I'm declaring a conflict of interest, Your Worship, and I'm leaving the chamber in my employment.
So it's the Adelaide Hills Regional Waste Management Authority Strategic Plan 2024-34, and there's a recommendation that we approve that plan. Move, Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
I just think this is an opportune time to mention my disappointment that we can't get the FRWA and these guys to talk merger, because it would be such a great opportunity for them. One of them being great at service delivery and the other one being great at strategic waste management. What a shame.
Any further discussion? No, so I'll put Councillor Scott.
Be that as it may, it will take quite a lot more. I thought I had. Be that as it may, I excuse me, I understand Councillor Oliver's sentiments, but it will take fair amount of work to get that to work, and it will take quite a long time. But I don't want to labour the point. A lot of work went into drawing up this, developing the strategic plan, and I think as a group we were all very impressed with the work that had been done in developing it. That's all.
So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So 8.13 is the Chief Executive Officer's report, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Moved, Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Is there any discussion or questions relating to Nigel's report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Miller, are you in favour or against? Pardon? In favour? It's carried unanimously. So 9 is section 41, committees and advisory panels, minutes and reports. 9.1 is the minutes of the section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee from the 2nd of May 2024. And there's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to those minutes? No. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.2 is a recommendation from the section 41 committee, Cemeteries Advisory Committee, draft public toilet management plan. And there's a recommendation there of 2 parts from the committee and administration. Move it all together. Is there a mover? Councillor Maidment. Second, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to that report? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.3 is the minutes of the section 41 Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee, the amended minutes of the 21st of March 2024. And there's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Is there a mover for that? Somebody? Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion relating to those minutes? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.4 is the minutes of the section 41 Ratalang, Basham's Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee of the 9th of May 2024. And there's a recommendation that we receive and note those minutes. Move, Councillor Nicholson. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Any discussion relating to those minutes? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in... It's getting late, isn't it? A bit slow. Councillor Maidment.
So I note here that it says that the committee does not, they consider 90,000 to be excessive and they don't support allocating that to the repair of the ruins. But we have already agreed that that should happen. So where does that stand? So they're saying that 90,000 is an excessive amount for the repair of the ruins. We've agreed that 90,000 should come out of the trust fund. So what's their thinking? Is it going to be less than 90,000 or is it going to be right on that amount?
Through the Chair, my understanding is that they wanted to note their feelings on the value of that work. They do support the work being done, but it's the value of the work that they wanted to bring forward through this agenda, through these minutes.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
I have some questions regarding the work that's happening to the old farm building. And I would like to know who's supervising that work to repair the buildings. Have or are any of the committee members been on site directing works at any time? And if they are, where are they getting their authority to do so? Will all the shrubs, vegetation and other deleterious materials that could potentially cause future damage be removed? And I have a subsequent question that I'll ask when we do the next one. Thank you.
Through the Chair, so question 1 was who's supervising the work? That'll be council. It's a council project. So if you're referring to the 2 pieces of work being done on the ruins, yes, not the actual homestead itself, that's not. No, so the ruins, yes. So yeah, they're being supervised by council as a council project. Could you repeat the second question for me, please?
Through your worship, have or are any of the Ratalang Basham Beach committee members been on site directing works or querying works, or if they are, where's their authority to do that?
Through the Chair, I've not been made aware of any of that happening. However, I would take that on notice and confirm that for you.
my other question was about the shrubs and vegetation and other materials around the structure. They're going to be removed to prevent further damage.
Anything that wasn't present before will be removed. So only from a construction perspective, the site will be left the same way it was found. The damage to the ruins is to do with degradation generally and also vandalism.
So, is there any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Very, very quickly, Your Worship, I just want to point out, just to put some clarity around the comment of the 90,000. There is concern, I think it's shared by some of the committee, and certainly from me, where does our responsibility begin and end in maintaining those ruins? Because the cost in the future is going to be excessive, and I think somewhere along the line some decision needs to be made in conjunction with the owner, being the state government, as to where we get, because it could be a sinking fund for us.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.5 is a report from the Section 41 Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee. Allocation of funds from the Basham Beach Trust for the works budget of 2024-25. And there's a recommendation of the Trust and Administration there. I'll move it all together. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have a question about dot point 2, the grazing paddock maintenance. Oh, sorry, this is gone. Post-native grasses planting project. Can we please have an update on the status of that? And another question I have is about the minutes, because we've moved these together, so I thought we were doing them one at a time. I'll ask them now. Is the committee aware that, or a procedural question actually, when we receive and note minutes that come from committees, just by receiving and noting them, we're not endorsing the recommendations within them unless they come as a separate specific decision for us? Because I think there's perhaps some confusion with maybe this committee that because we receive and note their minutes, we're endorsing what they think or say or note. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Through the chair, that's why we do it in two parts. The first part is just noting what they resolved, and then recommendation by administration, which is then put to councils where you actually vote upon it. I'm pretty sure they're aware, but maybe at the next meeting we can just re-clarify that to them, just in case.
So my question about the grazing paddock maintenance, just an update on where that project is at, please.
Mr. Harvey will do that.
Through the chair, yes, the initial work of spraying the weeds out has been engaged, and I believe it's either on its way or been done. I will confirm that for you. The second stage of that, which is the planting, is to happen later on, once that spray out and clearing has occurred.
Just a further clarification on that. Has that been procured, that work to do?
Through the chair, the first part of that has, yes, as a direct approach under our procurement processes. The second part will form a tender or request for quote.
Councillor Maidment.
Question, the coastal officer and trainee, 2 times 0.5 FTE, is that coming, is that contracted? And if it's a permanent position, is there any recurring spending planned for the ensuing years? Because a trainee obviously is either 12 months or an extended period of time.
Can you answer that? Yes.
Through the chair, the budget is considered annually, depending on the need at the time. In this particular situation, we do have a coastal officer plus a trainee that are working in that environment. The coastal officer is a full-time equivalent staff member of council. The trainee is a contracted or casual member of staff through Maxima, who are the training organisation that supports us with them.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? No. Carried unanimously. Item 10 is council member reports. 10.1 is the presiding member's report. Recommendation that my report for May be received. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Second to Councillor Livingston. Any discussion or questions relating to my report? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.2 is council members' activity report. Councillor Gardner has a report for May 24 with a recommendation that that be received. Councillor Livingston, you moving that? So seconder? Councillor Maidment. Are there any verbal updates that relate to your activities as a councillor that you anybody wishes to add? Councillor Scott.
I just want to draw attention to that flood meeting at Ashbourne and commend all involved. I thought it was a very, very professionally run meeting and I thought achieved quite a lot. The involvement of the community was at a I think at quite a high level, and I was just very impressed because, as some of you would be aware, some of the meetings we've been to have been less than satisfactory, but I thought that was extremely good, very well run, and a credit to those involved. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Coomans.
I sort of alluded to this before, but I attended a meeting this morning and the formation of a brand new Mount Compass community shed, which is part of the Men's Shed organisation, and they're in the process of getting incorporated. They come under the auspices of the Mount Compass War Memorial Community Centre at the moment, but they will incorporate themselves, and they've already got a project underway. And I should mention is they're really keen to reinstate the visitor information. It was a shop before, but they now have a caravan, and they're very keen to get that started. And there's some information in council system at the moment seeking approval for that. Another group that started up is a community gardens group, which will come under the Mount Compass Community Association. And they will be setting up at the Church of England in Clyde Terrace. So they've got land there to put their gardens and fencing, and they've also been donated a reasonable sized shed that they'll be putting up, and they'll probably need development approval for that. But things are moving, and that was terrific to see. Good membership of those two as well.
Any further? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 11 is confidential items.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.